Please remember to subscribe to both our YouTube and Facebook pages at the OneMic Show. Follow us on Instagram at OneMic Show, and we are now also on TikTok. And then the number to call tonight is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. I will repeat that number one more time. It is 202-683-4570 and press star 5 to speak. Now, if you've ever wondered how do we separate truth from online hype, tonight's conversation is exactly for you. In recent weeks, Somali communities from Eastleigh to Minneapolis have been caught in a storm of allegations, from mass ID buying in Kenya to whispers that COVID-era PPP money is behind Nairobi's real estate boom, and even claims linking welfare fraud to terrorism, Al-Shabaab terrorism. Tonight, we are stepping back from the noise to ask what's real, what's exaggerated, and what's purely social media storytelling. Joining us shortly to unpack it all is Hassanen Mohamed, the Executive Director of the Minnesota Somali Community Center. So start dropping your comments below and let us know where you're tuned in from, what city, what state, what country, and what questions you want us to ask him or what you've heard about this conversation. Bila kusahau, napokea mziki toka DJ wetu machachari mleta habari DJ Omosh Fire, na tunadunda kule viwanjani na Mika Ojeze yake nambari 7 mgongoni akiletea habari za michezo moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro Studios. Ni mimi mtangazaji na mwanahabari wako mpendwa Ali Badawi. Kwetu wananiita mteule na wengine huniita mjukuu wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Karibuni.
Now, let's talk politics.
This is how we're going to be turning our focus to the allegations and narratives surrounding Somali communities in the US and Kenya, from claims of mass ID buying to rumors that COVID-era PPP money is behind Nairobi's real estate boom, to accusations tying welfare fraud to terrorism. Hassanen Mohamed, Executive Director of the Minnesota Somali Community Center, will be joining us shortly to break down what's true, what's exaggerated, and what is simply misinformation. So please drop a comment below and tell us what city, what country, what state you're tuned in from. And also, let us know what you want to hear from Hassanen tonight. I can see we already have people tuned in. I have Nancy Mirotsi all the way from Iowa. Nasema, I have so many Somali friends, great people, but I have also seen things. Nancy, tell us what things you've seen, because that's what we want to talk about tonight. Slay Odwor all the way from Texas, and Salimia pale karibu sana Slay, and Esther Mulusa all the way from the Dirty South, the Carolinas, from North Carolina. Nasema, that was some great drumming. I believe that was during the music segment. Please share the artist. Happy Friday from the Dirty South. Omosh will be sharing that artist with you shortly. And then Stephen JJ all the way from Texas. Texas always representing. And Asema, we're in the building. Karibu sana. And then Representative Mheshimiwa Hulda Momanyi Hillsley all the way from Minnesota, the epicenter of what we're going to be discussing tonight. She's tuned in from the Midwest. And Asema, happy Friday to the OneMic Show crew. Thank you so much for this episode. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Again, the number is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Naona watu wajaingia bado pale YouTube. So if you're tuned in on YouTube, drop a comment there. Let us know where you're tuned in from and what you want to hear tonight. Again, the number is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. And we're going to get started because we have so much to unpack tonight. Now, we live in a social media age where narratives explode before the facts are checked, where claims turn into truths overnight, and where entire communities can be judged by a single viral post. But few of us ever pause to ask, where did these narratives begin? Who benefits from them? And what is actually true? Now, claims of mass ID buying in Kenya, whispers that COVID-era PPP money is fueling Nairobi's real estate boom, the accusations that welfare fraud is bankrolling terrorism, and the political firestorm ignited by President Trump's recent comments about Somalis in Minnesota. But tonight, we are not here to amplify fear. We are here to separate truth from exaggeration, history from hearsay, and filter the signal from noise. To help us do that, we are joined by a man at the center of these narratives, Mr. Hassanen Mohamed. Now, Hassanen is the executive director of the Minnesota Somali Community Center. He's a community leader who has spent years addressing the very issues that get weaponized online, from youth safety to overdose crisis and the civic engagement to countering misinformation. Hassanen has partnered with imams, fathers, youth mentors to calm tensions. He has also worked with law enforcement, policymakers, and community elders to address public safety challenges without feeding harmful stereotypes. And the big question tonight is, do these narratives reflect real issues? Are they political amplification? Or are we seeing a dangerous mix of both? Feel free to let us know what you think in the comments below, so please start typing. We're going to revisit the historical roots of anti-Somali sentiment in both Kenya and the US, and we'll also interrogate the claims filling social media, WhatsApp groups, and TikTok timelines. So ladies and gentlemen, please buckle up and hit your favorite emoji on YouTube Live and Facebook Live, and join me in welcoming the man who will be helping us separate fact from fiction, Mr. Hassanen Mohamed. Hassanen, karibu sana to the OneMic Show. How are you doing today? Can you hear us?
Nakusikia vizuri sana.
Okay.
Thank you.
Aya, karibu sana. How are you feeling today, Hassanen?
Mimi niko poa bana. Mimi niko tayari. I'm ready. I'm waiting for the questions to come in. We want to have a real candid conversation. Sasa niko tayari. Bring it.
Now, before we get started with this conversation, because this has been a very hot and toxic conversation online. So before we get started, maybe tell us briefly, for those maybe who are interacting with Hassanen for the first time, tell us a little bit about who Hassanen is in a brief minute and what you do for the Somali Community Center, where you're an executive director. Hassanen.
Yes. So I am the executive director of the Minnesota Somali Community Center. We are pretty much a one-stop shop for community issues. Part of the programs we run doing like opioids outreach, we do migration issues, we help elders, we deal with youth issues, legal, we go to courts, we advocate for folks maybe who have committed a crime based on their drug use and transfer them from criminal cases to drug courts, which will give them a path towards getting treatment. Prior to that, I was the president of the League of Minnesota Human Rights Commission. This is an organization that dealt with all human rights issues in the state of Minnesota. I served as their president for 3 years out of 4 years that I was serving over there. I was the chair of the Human Rights Commission for the city of Brooklyn Park 4 years out of the 6 years that I was there. In the great city of Brooklyn Park, where my representative is Hulda Hensley, the first Kenyan woman in state, Representative Hulda Hensley. So we have been able to work on many different issues from being here. I've lived in Minnesota now for over 25 years, total in the United States over 26 years. Kwenye city of Brooklyn Park, I've lived over 21 years, going 22 soon. So I've lived here when the white population was 70%. Now we are part of the majority, right now in the city of Brooklyn Park in the Midwest. And we are known as the largest foreign-born citizen city in the Midwest. So we have the template of what will happen, down the road in the United States if the demographics change.
Amazing stuff, and amazing to know that you're represented by Hulda, who's tuned in here, and we are very grateful to have both of you within the episode today. Now, before we get into the current storm, Hassanen, of accusation and misinformation, can you take us back to the beginning? What is the historical genesis of anti-Somali sentiment, especially in Kenya? And how did these early attitudes evolve into the narratives that we are seeing today? Hassanen.
I think historically you have to go back to how it started, and most of the African countries, all of us who went to school and learned geography in Africa, you learn about colonialism and how people were divided because of unimaginary borderlines that cut communities. And sometimes people had differentiation of negotiations where a piece of land was taken from one area to the other area, and where there was a regulated conversations between nations that one day they will have a form of a referendum of some sort. Now, if you look at historically where the claims of the land of Somalia, it goes all the way to the Kenyan side where the Northern Frontier District is. On the Ethiopian side, it covers the Ogaden region. On the northern side, it covers the Djibouti area. All those areas are known as the Somalis. If you look at the Somali flag, you will see that it has a star in the middle. The conversations on the Somali nationals is that star represents the 5 regions, the region where currently is Djibouti, the region in Ethiopia known as Ogaden, the region in northeastern frontier, Mandera, all the way down to Tana River side, and also the southern side of Somalia, and the northern side where it's currently known as Hargeisa. Those are known as the 5 corners of Somalia. Now, if we go back, we'll remember that we talk about, colonialism. How did it start at the Berlin Conference? All those things divided communities. If you go on the northern side of Kenya, you can see the Oromo, Orma, or Rendile have been divided with the borders between Kenya and Ethiopia. On the north and western side, you can find regions where there's the Dinka, the Gambela folks who are divided and put between Kenya and Ethiopia. And you can find cross-border conversation. A good example is Moyale, Kenya, Moyale, Ethiopia, where same individuals related through generations are divided by a border that you don't even need a passport sometimes to walk from one side to the other side. If you go to the western Kenyan side, you find the Teso that are found in Ugandan side and the Kenyan side, and all of that plays into how Kenya came about from 1963 to the shifter wars where, there were folks in the Somali region that said, we want to be reunified with Somalia, to where the previous administration started to make sure they find out who really is the person that stays in that region so they can earn to get that ID. And I don't know if any of you remember, but back in 1980s in Kenya, if you remember, you had to have going through a vetting process and get through some form of a red card for you to get the ID. Not as easy as it is today. So all those plays into part in how we are very divided in terms of like an imaginary borderline that, and then what also caused problems is the civil wars that happen, outside Kenya. You can see the civil war in Somalia, the civil war in Ethiopia, the civil war in Uganda, the civil war in South Sudan. All of those played a role in how we tighten our grip, because we want to make sure Kenya becomes a form of a safe haven for their population. So we're safeguarding people from coming in. So we'll create some kind of policies that really weed out, communities that we don't want them to come and have a fight on this side of the land. So that's where most of the conflict came about. If you look at historical facts, those are the things that, happened. Even when there was a war between Tanzania and Uganda towards Mwanza area, if you guys remember, in the 1970s between Idi Amin and Milton Obote. And, you wonder, how do I know all of this? Because my father actually married my mom in Kampala in 1965. So we consider ourselves like the East African kids being born from different regions. And that's how we know the political context. And we are attached to politics from Uganda, from Kenya, from Tanzania, from Somalia, because all of us are intermarried. My siblings, I'm a second youngest of 12. And you have individuals that are married in Tanzania, married in Uganda, married in Somalia. And so we get that connection in all these regions.
Okay. All right, good. Like a very good, introduction and background there. So before we go deep in, I want to introduce my panel here in studio. Right beside me, we have DJ Omosh Fire. DJ Omosh Fire, karibu sana. Now, DJ Omosh, you grew up in neighborhoods and went to schools with a strong Somali presence. Maybe what are your expectations tonight in as far as debunking or reconciling the narratives online versus what you know about Somalis having grown up with them? DJ Omosh, karibu sana.
Asante sana, Ali. Thanks to our guest who's listening to us from very, very far. I hear it's very, very, very far. But again, neither here or there. So, you know, Ali, you bring up a good point about the Somali community in Kenya. And I think the Somali community, based upon my time when I was living in Kenya and going to school in Kenya versus the Somali community in Kenya now, and then the Somali community in the diaspora, it's like there are three different worlds. Because for me, growing up, the Somali community I remembered was the long distance truck hauling drivers who used to do they did the 18-wheelers. Then they also did the tourists, you know, would come from like almost like from SA with those big trucks. Now walikuwa nakaa nyuma za zile truck, and they used to make those trucks into like tour vans.
Yes. Fiat.
Zilikuwa Fiat, zile trucks.
Zilikuwa Fiat, zile zinafanya kwa milima.
Yes. And what we knew was that they all lived in Eastleigh area. And then, you know, you always heard that these guys had money. The money was never put in the bank, blah, blah, blah. So, but Somalis, the ones I went to school with, are always, you know, always very generous, very nice, a very good community to me, in my experience. I went to school in Eastlands, actually next door to Eastleigh. So I am very, 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 very familiar with that whole area. And this, again, is pre the whole area coming down. Bus station was still around back then.
Bus station was still around,
around back then.
I think right now they have BBS Mall, where the bus station
Mall,
used to be. Yes.
You know, Calif was an area that was in between, inategemea ikiwa unakaa mtu wa area, unaweza pita, usipokuwa kaa mtu wa area, uwezi pita na uwezi fikia, you know. KJ for me was regular. I used to pass through KJ to walk to go home. So anyway, what I'm expecting is for this this myth or these stories that are being told to us by people who are not in the Somali community to kind of give us an idea as to what's actually going on within the Somali community, both here and at home, because we have two parts to these stories where, you know, we hear things from here which are being given to us from a governmental perspective. And there's other things that are happening, which to me, to be honest, if it's lawlessness, that happens in every community. So why just this one community? And then at the same token, at home, because of the voter rights, or should I say not voter, the ID issues, which Ali, you have so eloquently spoken about here, because what is it called? At your last name denotes what? What we're gonna say? Jina yako ndio
your name betrays you.
Bas.
Yeah.
So hapo kwa your name betrays you.
Yeah.
And knowing, if you go back to Kenya's history, all the way back to siku za shifta. Me, I always refer to siku za shifta.
That's the 60s.
Yeah. If anybody knows stories of siku za shifta, and you have relatives who got caught in those cross-border wars, then you'll understand when I talk about siku za shifta. And those are the myths that, like, our parents carried with them, you know, coming forward. So I would like somebody to debunk these things. And especially, again, since we have someone from the Somali community, afungue tu roho atuambie, okay, A, is this true? B, is this not true? C, what is being done? And D, how do we get to debunk or to actually tell the true story of the Somali immigrant or the Somali themselves?
Yes.
Because they have gone through a lot as a people.
And that's what we're going to be debunking tonight. So I want to go to Mika. Now, coming into tonight, Mika, what questions or concerns are you hoping to understand better, especially around the claims against Somalis that seem to be dominating Kenyan social media spaces, especially in the last few weeks? Mika Och, twende kazi.
Thank you very much, Ali. Kwanza, before tuange story ya Somali, mimi nimejamii Omosh. Omosh, nilikupatia EP ya Mandi katuko Kenya. Leo ndo umecheza Buddies Need Love.
Hiyo story ya nyuma ya tent hiyo hapo sasa.
Yani, he didn't even give me credit. I even played Charisma.
Yeah. Haya, hiyo tutaongea baadaye. Sasa talk to us,
back
Mika.
to the show.
Yeah.
So, back to the show. For me, this is a thing for me. I want to hear. I want to learn. I want to get to understand, right? A lot has been said. A lot has led to a lot being said, especially on the Kenyan side, right? And I want to understand where some things are coming from, because for a lot to be said, there has been a lot of provocation that has been done. So I'm curious.
Okay.
That's what I'm stepping into the show today with, curiosity.
Okay. So curiosity. Okay, so that's good. And we're going to be addressing all kinds of curiosities tonight. So back in studio, before we go back to Hassanen, I want to come to UNOMic. Now, UNOMic, you've been following the conversation around Somalis supporting Trump. What stood out to you the most about how this narrative has been unfolding online, especially in the wake of the recent comments that Trump made? UNOMic.
I've been conflicted. And let me start by saying, looking at the first term and the need and the desire to want to have a Muslim ban, like ban.
Yeah.
And then
A blanket ban.
ban.
Yeah. Everyone. Yeah.
Muslim. And then, in the run up to the second term, the attempted the 2021, I mean 2024, the still the run, but that there's this guy in a propensity.
Politically correct?
Nyamaza. It's my point. You can see that this guy, shida yake anakuanga na hii, how?
Yeah.
There's been a conflict in terms of, okay, yeah, you have your there are certain things, like the LGBTQ kids and everything and family values, but that this guy does this.
Okay.
That is one. But I am also unlearning, because I am here to I've decided to unlearn and willing to relearn, because show ya last week at Tanzania.
Yes, it taught us a lot,
bro.
I
have unlearned a lot.
Yeah, last week.
And with Somali, I have unlearned a lot. Because here's the thing: you're conflicted because, watching the not CAF, is it CAF? The championships that just passed, where Chan.
Yeah.
You're seeing footage, you're seeing video, and you can't say that guys, Somalis are talking bad about Kenya, banning the Kenyan flag,
yes,
and everything, and then we come to this, and we see Trump what he's saying, and you're you can't help yourself but okay, these guys are nyewe surely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did some of them get to endorsing Trump?
Exactly.
So we're going to be addressing that too.
I am here like Mika. I am unlearning. I have done everything, and I'm willing to rewire.
Okay.
For Donald Trump.
Sawa. Now
those are Latinos, Gade. Those are Latinos, bro.
Yes. So before we go back to Hassanen, I want to welcome. I see Dorina Choki from Portstown, PA on YouTube. Karibu sana Dorina Choki. And people on YouTube, please tell us, what you want to hear tonight and where you're tuned in from. I can also see Chris Kibet, who's also on YouTube, anasema ala, so sijui kama ni maraki ya kwanza kutujoin. So please type a comment, let us know where you're tuned in from and what you want to hear tonight. And the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. John Mudhama is saying, tuning in from Hopkins, Minnesota, Somali people in Minnesota are sadly being used as a distraction from the scandals of the Trump administration. That's John Mudhama. Thank you so much for the comment. And then we have Greg Hazlitt and Anasema Lavington represented. Thank you so
Greg
much
is
for
just
tuning in.
traveling.
Yes,
this guy.
thank you so much for tuning in.
Uko Lavington home mpaka siku gani?
No, I think Greg needs to start sponsoring us. Greg, can you put what is that thing called? The one that we were getting.
Tuambie
Yes.
Lavington siku
Oh, by the
mpaka siku gani?
by the way,
Oh, how long is he gonna be in Lavington?
Yeah.
Yes, Greg.
So Greg will tell us. But ako kakitu that Omosh is talking about, a lot of you have been wondering how to support us. Have been asking us questions on where you can support us. If you go on your YouTube screen, hata kama uko kwa Facebook, unaweza kutoka kidogo, go on the YouTube screen. There's a $sign on the bottom right of the screen.
It
Just
depends
click
on
on
where
it.
you are. I think
Yes.
that sign will
That
be
sign,
different.
it could be pounds.
It could be pounds,
Yeah.
shillings, yes.
Yes, so whatever currency you have at the bottom right, just click on
Hiyo
it.
inaitwa super chat.
And it has a quick, easy way of showing how you can support us. So we appreciate
What's the
that.
Somalian currency?
Yeah. The Somalian currency, hiyo hapo Hassanen atatuambia.
They can use that also too.
So we'll figure that out. And then again here still on YouTube, I can see also Sydney's also tuned in from Minnesota. Anasema Hassanen, my brother, karibu sana. And then Nancy from Iowa anauliza, who remembers mateso bila chuki? Maybe explain that to us kidogo, Nancy, tupate kuelewa. Who remembers mateso bila chuki? Please explain to us what that is. It seems most of us here don't know what that is. And then Sally Jones, Shiro Minotis, anasema hello, watching from 5th Street, Eastleigh.
Allah.
Yes, karibu
Hiya.
sana Sally Jones. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Of course, we have Hassanen Mohamed in the studio, Executive Director, Minnesota Somali Community Center. We are here debunking myths about, the online, the virality about Somalis that has been going on online. So Hassanen, before we talk about Trump's recent attacks, let's go back to how anti-Somali sentiment in the U.S. actually formed. Remember that after 9/11, Somalis became some of the most visible Muslim communities in the U.S., making them a target for national security paranoia. Then we had issues around Al-Shabaab recruitment in the late 2000s. Now, conservative think tanks started branding Somalis as unassimilated, and the whole narrative slowly hardened into a political talking point. So from your perspective, Hassanen, how do all these layers eventually morph into the moment we first saw in 2016 when Trump turned Minnesota Somalis into a political tool on the national stage? Because it goes back to 2016. Hassanen.
Man, that's a whole lot of questions and linear conversations that we need to have. Okay, so I was here when 9/11 happened. I was in the United States. I felt it from day one, and the initial target of 9/11 were Middle Eastern. I don't know if you know this, but by counts, I believe at that time it was 11,000 individuals were picked up like crazy, left and right, put in planes without due process, deported from this country. And if you look back at that time, ICE was not there. Homeland Security was not there. You know, we had, I think it was
USCIS.
INS. You know, it wasn't USCIS.
It was INS. It was INS. You're right.
INS.
Yeah.
It was INS.
Oh, yeah, yes,
Right?
you're right. It was INS, yeah.
It was INS. There wasn't any USCIS. There wasn't any Homeland Security.
Yeah,
there
Homeland
wasn't
Security
any
didn't
ICE,
exist. It came after that, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It came after 9/11 through policies. And then we had the Patriotic Act, if you remember that.
Yeah.
That they didn't use any due process to put you. They can take 90 days. They can take 180 days. So that those are all fear legislation that happens, and it happens through history in every country in the world when they're targeting specific individuals. One thing I want to point out, you know, the history of Somali civil war, when they organized themselves and they reunited under their traditions and their religion to create a government, Ethiopia and United States felt threatened. United States funded Ethiopia. They went after the group that they called themselves the Islamic group that put the country together as a government. And they tried to dismantle it. If you remember, that's how Ethiopia invaded, you know, Somalia. And that created a sense of patriotism around the diaspora Somalis. And they're like, you know what? We want to go back and fight, you know, against the aggressors, against the invaders who came in. And remember, Somalia and Ethiopia have had historic war before. They have a region that speaks Somali, looks at and calls Somali, that they took, that they don't want to give back. We had a 1977 war between Somalia and Ethiopia where we reached like 50 kilometers from Addis Ababa before Fidel Castro sent 50,000 Cubans behind the lines on the Somali soldiers, and that's how he dissipated the Somali military apparatus and ended up forming their anti-government sentiments that brought the civil war in 91. So all those accumulations of historical facts that happened between Somalia and Ethiopia. And then Al-Shabaab was formed when people had a passion and say, you know what, we're going to go back and fight these invaders. Now I'll tell you something interesting about United States. You guys remember when they were fighting, the Taliban were fighting Russians, and the Americans went over there, gave them stingers, invited them to White House, sat down with them, and then eventually they coordinated by law and put them under the list of being a terrorist organization, right? The same thing happened with Somalia. Al-Shabaab was being funded by individuals. They came in, they started fighting this war under the guise of being patriotic to defend their thing. And then eventually, United States put them as a terrorist organization. Now, what does that have? What does that do when you do that? When you do that, it means that by American law, if you participated with a terrorist organization, it doesn't matter they were peaceful before, but as soon as it's designated as a terrorist organization, even your past participation to that group, it's a fact that can be used against you as you are participating in a terrorist organization. So before, everybody was patriotic and everywhere around the world, they were putting in money, and suddenly when it became a terrorist organization, everybody was scared now, because now they can be judged that they participated in helping out Al-Shabaab. So that's where the conversation about terrorism in Somalis, the sentiments about that. And you have to know, in the Civil War, if you all remember, Black Hawk happened. There were a lot of Americans who were killed and they were dragged.
That was in the 90s.
Yeah, that was in 93. Yeah. And that sentiment has, it's the only country in Africa that United States had thousands of soldiers who came in, and they were literally shamed by raggedy soldiers who, and community members who had guns that dragged their dead bodies. I mean, never in the history of the United States has a country been so vicious with them that they had to just pack their bags and leave, and that's what happened during Black Hawk Down after that event. So there is that negative sentiment of how that unfolded in American society, how a third world country, mostly Black, mostly Muslim, beat up a big country, in a very simple terms, and literally very, very, very vicious in how they dealt with it. So all those sentiments culminated into all this, what you're seeing right now. But I would love to hear a question directly involving a significant part. But I'll tell you that there's a culmination of so many things: 9/11, Black Hawk Down, anti-Muslim sentiments, all of that.
Okay, all right, fair enough. And we're going to get to all those. And I can already see, some questions that are taking a tangent here. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Chris Kibet on YouTube is asking, I want to hear why Somalis find it hard to assimilate to other cultures. Now, Hassanen, let's diverge a bit. I want you to address this question just briefly, because this is one of those things that is in the social media spaces, or these people, they do not like assimilating in other cultures. So truth, false, exaggeration.
I have a problem.
Ngoja kwanza. Can I add something on that?
Yes, go ahead, Bika. Yeah.
Hassanen, the reason why, and I guess the reason why Chris is asking that question is because I've been in social media spaces whereby I've had Somalis claim we're not Africans, we're Arabs. And I've had Somalis actually make monkey noises to us Kenyans and other Black people, right? And actually like alienate themselves from like, no, we're not Africans, we're Arabs. It was so bad to a point whereby Arabs came and actually started abusing them and denying them and like, no, you're not. Like, stop putting that, right? And then when we go to Kenya, we have seen places whereby unapata Mkenya anaitwa nywele ngumu, like I'm a Bantu, like there is that animosity that comes out of it. So this is what is leading to that question, because there is that belief of some people who will tell you like ati mazemo walalo hata hawezi ongea na demo wao, wanaweza kupigwa kukatekate, sijui like hawezi kwa best yao, like there's that alienation that imewekwa tu. That is what's leading to this question, to the common people kwa ground.
All right, so
Okay, kwa ground.
So I wanna-
Kwa ground. So basically ni
Alright.
why do Somalis find it hard to assimilate? And
Okay.
also Somalis believe they're black. Do they believe they're black
Yep.
or Arabs? So this is a question coming from Chris Kibet on YouTube. Hassanen.
All right, watch Nijibu. Let me. These are really good conversations. We even ourselves have it in within us. But number one, let me tell you this. Mintazungumza Kiswahili saili unielewe. Kuna msemo asema mwachamila ni mtumwa. Okay, so it's one thing where we saying you keep your culture, which is a very important center point of every cultures in Africa. You know, the good thing about if you have a culture in Africa and you drive, let's say, for example, you're on a bus from Mombasa to Kisumu, you can drive 50 miles from Mombasa unazungumza Kiswahili. When you reach Taita Taveta, is a different group of people, demographically, culturally different. You know, their appearance is different. You drive another 50, 100 miles down, unaenda, you know, Voi, ukipita, ukienda Mtituande, unapatana na Mkamba. Very different language, different cultures, different futures, you can tell, you know? You drive, you go to Kikuyu land, you can meet a Kikuyu, different language and that. The thing is in the Somali culture, we are homogenous. You cannot look at a Somali person and say, hey, this is your tribe. We do have tribes in Somali, you know? We don't have like a specific future that you can say like, this is it. There's only two countries in Africa that are known to be homogenous. They are Liberia and Somalia. How did Liberia become homogenous? Liberia became homogenous because it's the only country that was made out of an act of Congress. So what they did was they told Black folks in America who came from different areas, Congo, Nigeria, Togo, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, you know, Cameroon. And then they said, hey, you want to go back to Africa? We have a land for you. Let's take you back. So they took all the gene coons from all these different areas, put them in one land, and that's how Liberia was formed, right? And then the Somalis, the same thing. We have had intermarriages from war, and it was the closest point, you can say, to the Middle East. Prior to early, you know, in the late 1800s, before they blew up Suez Canal, you can walk literally from, you know, Asia, from Europe, all the way to the Horn of Africa. You can do that. You could walk. So there was intergenerational marriages. If you look at the history of Genghis Khan, his army took over all the way cities in Egypt. You know, they reached in Northern Africa. You know, so there has been intermarriages in Africa that has happened. The two countries that show that they are homogeneous, Somalia and Liberia, and that's how it comes about. Now, if we talk about assimilation, mostly that is being used, they're using that in the United States. What you want to ask a United States person is, what is your culture? Go look at the history of the United States. There's no specific culture in the United States. You come in with your culture, and that's who you are. You are a United States citizen, and you get to express your culture. So that fallacy that anybody, especially the white population, use against the Somalis and say, hey, they don't assimilate. It's just bogus and it's unrealistic. It doesn't function because there is no United States culture. Everybody comes with their identity here in this country. Now, if we talk in the context of Kenya now, when we say about assimilation in Kenya, Why do you want somebody else's culture to assimilate to yours? Do you ask the Luos to assimilate to the Kikuyu when they come to live in Nairobi, or if they come to live in any other places? You don't ask them to assimilate. You accept people who they are, their culture, you respect their culture, and you stick with it, because God did not create all of us to be the same. We're created differently so that we can know about each other, not to judge about each other. Now, in terms of like how is a Somali, that conversation, sadly has reached a point where it does not make sense. Somalis are Black, Somalis are Africans, they belong to the Arab League, but at the end of the day, they're Africans. They are on the AU, So any conversation of somebody who does talk about that, it's wrong. I joined Ancestry.com because I have a part of my mom's side. My mom, parent, like her mother died when she was 6 years old. My grandfather was not with her until she was 13. So by the time she went to her, she lost connection with her mother's side. I joined Ancestry.com because my mom said, hey, I miss my family on my mother's side because I wasn't connected to it. So I was trying to figure out, is there anybody who's connected with me through my mom's side? And I say this because I want to show you the power of DNA. When I put my DNA on Ancestry.com, it came back showing me the region where my genes come from, right? And the reason why you will be able to see that is because people from a specific area share some common alleles or some common, connection of some sort genetically to certain area. So I would say this is that if you look at those areas in my genetic platform, it shows it's in Africa. It's Black folks. If you look at my mom, Ali Badawi, mamangu mweusi kushinda mamako, And if I look at any of you, Mikasi or anybody, my mom would be the same dark-skinned. She's a Somali woman, but she's dark-skinned just like any African woman, So that notion that we are Arabs, there's no realistic fact about that genetically, there is only historical value. Remember, in some of our cultural, expression, the Somali cultural expressions, we do something called oral literature. We don't draw on caves. We don't have like artifacts that tells our story. What we do is we sit down with our offsprings and we tell them about the history of our family. Now, can you imagine that conversation? If there were 10 people, you go to the first person and you say, hey, I killed a snake and the snake was 1 foot. What do you think the message will be when it reaches the 10th person?
I ate the snake.
That snake was 18
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who wrestled it and it's hanging in my house.
I beat the snake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we are a culture of oral literature. We sit down with our kids and we say, listen, this is your tribe. This is your family name. This is the historical values that happen between this and that and that and that and that and that. Okay. And that's how Somali culture spreads their historical facts. So anybody who tells you that, we come from someplace, there's historical value, there are some tribes in Somalia that says, oh, my great-great-great-grandfather migrated from Middle East. But guess what? When they take that DNA test shows a region in Somalia that where they come from, that where people specifically from that region shows that their DNA comes from that area.
Okay, all right. So very good answer to Chris Kibet. I hope you were satisfied. Do a follow-up question. If not, I can see hapa Ziki also on YouTube. Ziki 5702 anasema, let us first of all define assimilation. I don't think it's fair to question where one wants to associate with him or herself. Let's talk real issues and shove aside the typical archaic line of questioning. And Daniel Karanja is asking for the number. The number is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Of course, we have Hassanen Mohamed live, talking to us about this Somali issue that has been trending in the past couple of days or maybe the past week. Now, hapa on Facebook, Nancy Mirosi is reminding us Mateso Bila Chuki was a club in Eastleigh. Where? You up? I'm hearing
Yes.
about it for the first time.
Listen,
yeah.
this was a very famous club in Eastleigh, Mateso Bila Chuki. It
Oh.
was opposite Samuji. If she knows, she knows.
Okay, all right. So
Hey,
if you know,
hello.
you know. Okay, all right. Sawa. Now, hapa Esther Mulusa is saying Operation Black Hawk Down disgraced the best elite Marines. The Marine commander of that mission, I believe, committed suicide. And then Nancy says, yeah, they say they're Africans. They are Somalians. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. And then Esther Mulusa says Liberia has indigenous tribes and were oppressed by the returnee slaves. And then Apa Sally Jones anasema, don't we have Kenyan Somalis? We're going to be talking about this later on.
We
The
do,
issue of
actually.
Kenyan Somalis and Somalis. We're going to be talking about it because when the lines were being drawn during the Berlin conference, there was no consideration that this line is tearing apart 2 or 3
Cousins.
communities or tearing apart cousins. Very interesting example that I always give people. There was a time when Kenya had a vice president who had a brother who was a member of
Huko nyuko
parliament
kwetu.
in Uganda. Yes,
Huko nyuko kwetu.
exactly. Yeah, these are blood brothers.
That's Mika's uncle. Actually.
Yes, these are blood
Huko
brothers
nyuko kwetu.
that were in 2 separate countries. But now we want to come back to something now entirely different. And hapa Chris Kibet anasema it was well answered and explained. So very good. Now, Hassanen, this past week, Trump has gone after Somalis again from his Truth Social posts where he claims Somalis are running Minnesota and taking over communities. He went further and said he frankly does not want to see Somalis here in the U.S. And there's also new fears as ICE raids are being intensified in Somali communities in Minnesota. Now, those fresh attacks from Trump have already spilled beyond US politics. We are seeing Kenyan bloggers and influencers amplifying them, some African diaspora groups repeating them, and even some Black American spaces picking up the same talking points. So from your perspective, Hassanen, why do you think Trump's recent comments seem to be fueling anti-Somali sentiment, not just in the US, but also in Kenya and among other African and Black communities here? Hassanen.
Naanze na Ilhan. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Nitaanza na Ilhan. First, you have to know, man, we're proud to have a Black African lady in Congress who is part of a very elite group of Congress folks that are holding, space for us. She said on the foreign affairs, I think you remember when the Democrats lost, they had to kick her out of there. But she centered African issues in American policy. That's one thing that we cannot take away from Ilhan. Number one. Number two, she has been very outspoken about things that she has done in the 5th district. Listen, I'm just going to go back and just tell you this. Ilhan Omar comes from a district where maybe 15,000 folks out of over 200, 300,000 that vote are Somalis. You can't tell me she wins because of the Somali vote. No. What she has done is she has created a large tent where everybody's issue is being addressed and everybody feels they are part of her campaign. And that's why she has been winning over and over again, with all this negative rhetorics, big money, coming against her and everything being thrown at her. So here is a fact that I'm going to share with you guys. In the Somali community, we are very proud to say over 86, I think close to 90% of our population vote. We vote. We religiously vote in a higher percentage than most African communities or even some other American communities here. Does it make a difference? Absolutely. I'll tell you this. Some elections here in Minnesota, I'm going to be factual, and how right now in our house in the legislative, I'll tell you, where Hulda sits, it's divided. It's a split house. There's 67 House members on both sides, Republicans and Democrats. Okay. In the Senate, there are 34 Democrats and 33 Republicans. So, and we have a Democratic governor. Let me start with this. Some of the Senate seats where they are 34, 33 right now were divided by, less than 200, 300 votes. Like, let's say St. Cloud, where a lot of Somalis live. And guess what? The Somali votes made a difference. Okay? If you go to Wilmar, another spot, Somali votes made a difference. The person won by less than, I think, 150 votes. Again, made a difference. If you remember historically, Norm Coleman, who was a senator here in Minnesota, Republican, got beat by Al Franken by less than 350 votes. If 15,000 Somalis are religiously voting, remember, we have a thumb on the scale, so we can change the dynamics where it happens, right? And that's where we become the red meat for the Republican side. And they have used that over and over again with fake news that are being repeated. Now, I'll tell you this, historically, if you repeat lies over a long period of time, people believe it.
It becomes the truth, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yes. And then you also remember, perception is reality. People create this perception over communities.
Yeah.
And, it goes over and over again. And remember, and I tell this people, folks who are my friends who are white, they have the white privilege that they can use to protect us. I tell them, silence is complicity. There's this culture in America. We talk about culture. There's this culture in America. It's called mind your own business.
Hakuna nyumba
Which
kumi.
sometimes, unaona, ni mind your own business. Inaleta shida sana. That sometimes you say, you know what, I'm an 8 to 5 guy. I only vote on election day. I just show up and, I make my own decision like on the last day and that's it. But if people bombard you, just like they bombarded the American population in 2016 election, you guys know how much it was influenced by all this fake boats, Russian agents, foreign agents that were pouring in fake news about different kind of things, that made that change. So I'll tell you this. The reason why we are being targeted is because the Somali community has been very vocal political wise. They have been very uplifting to other communities, other Africans that have been here, very helpful with other populations, to win seats, and they're democratic seats. So it creates that animosity on the Republican side, and that has culminated to where we are today with Donald Trump going crazy. Remember, this is the guy who came in Minnesota in 2016, I think 2 days before election, at the airport to make a big scene telling, folks that, hey, if you want to kick out Somalis out of Minnesota, you have to vote for me. Ali, you and I shared some articles about folks who went in and supported Donald Trump.
Yes.
And I told you this, some of the individuals who did it, we had conversations with them. I personally had conversation with them. I was like, what's going on? And one of the things I want to share with you guys is that the biggest center point of African families is children, right? There was a big push from the Republican side and all these conservative crazy people that put in crazy money in telling parents that your kids are being taught LGBTQ stuff in schools everywhere, right? It was crazy. I mean, parents who were Muslims, who were Christians, showed up in school boards and pitchforks and said, no, I don't want my kids to be taught that, and mind you, there is some control you as a parent has, in this kind of studies. For example, when a high school in my district decided to have a class about LGBTQ, they were given an option, who wants to come? I think only like a handful, maybe less than 5 kids went in. The rest of the kids said, no, we don't want to take the class. They were in a gym. It shows like how unpopular that class was. So there was a culmination of people to discourage Somali community from coming out and voting, from lifting up other African communities. Remember, today we have folks like Hulda. We have other folks from other African communities like Esther, who's Nigerian, not because of only Nigerian community or Kenyan community, but also all African communities coming together and say, you know what, if Ilhan can be in Congress, you can be in the state house, you can be a senator, you can be a house, you can be a city council member, you can be a mayor. So all of those things are seen as us being the spark of the communities here in Minnesota. And I want to remind you something. Black folks in Minnesota, the percentage is 7%. We don't make that big of a population out of a 5.7 million in population.
Now, Yes. So this is quite interesting because you also mentioned because I was looking actually for the connection of these Trump sentiments, why like other African communities also launched onto them, and one of the things that that brought that up was what you've mentioned, because last year we did see the press conference by some Somali elders in Minnesota where they publicly endorsed Trump's election. They argued that Trump brought economic stability, supported small business owners, and that his policies were misunderstood by the wider immigrant community. And then, of course, you brought up that issue of the LGBTQ community, which I think is one of those things that also needs an episode on it separately, because this has also affected a number of other Muslim communities. Now, many of us were actually not sure whether that group of elders that we saw, because that press conference is being shared and being replayed.
It's being recycled like a nonsense.
It's being recycled now that Trump has spoken against Somalis in Minnesota. Many of us weren't sure whether that represented the majority position of Somali-Americans or simply the interests and frustrations of a small group of elders. When you look at the backlash that followed, especially from African immigrants and some Black American spaces, do you think that this perceived Somali endorsement of Trump is part of what's feeding today's anger and anti-Somali sentiment, especially from fellow Blacks, fellow Africans, and from Black Americans? Hassanen.
Yeah, so let's be realistic. You, Ali, I think you and I have known each other for a long time. You know, not only do I have that face that I help out in the community, I'm also involved in political circles as well.
Yes.
You know, because I know that in America, your livability is tied to politics. You know, how you get your healthcare, how your education, how you get your street outside your door, how you pay your taxes, everything is politics. You know, who you choose to represent you is going to affect what happens in your pocket. So here's one thing I'll tell you. There's a culmination of how we reached here. I'm going to say this. The Democratic Party itself has some liability into this as well. You know, 66% of Democrats did not support the Gaza war. They want something to be done. If you look at the Democratic Convention, there was a state representative from Georgia, a lady of Palestinian heritage, who wanted to speak on behalf of the Palestinian people. She was not allowed.
Yes.
There were people who are, big delegates that were against the war. They were not given the platform, but the folks who are pro-Israel were given the platform, right? And then there was multiple questions put forward to Kamala Harris about the Palestine, you know? And she did not respond the right way. She, pretty much alluded as if this was not a center point for people to make a decision about their election. You know, she was saying, hey, you need to worry about economics. You need to worry about your livability. Don't worry about Gaza, And that's where a lot of people felt like, you know what? I am not either voting for Kamala Harris or I will vote for Donald Trump. And you saw Donald Trump giving a deal to the Michigan, community, saying, you know what, I will stop this war from day one, right? And that imam comes out and says, hey, we are endorsing you because of what you say. And I tell them, I said, listen, Donald Trump is a liar.
That imam.
He's not going to do that. We've been telling you what the Democratic Party puts us in a bind was saying, we are trying to convince people to come back to support, Kamala. And they are not giving us something to prove that support is worthy of this people's cause, right? They thought like, you know what, if Kamala wins, then we'll deal with Gaza as a secondary issue, right? We would not deal with it as a primary issue for those people to vote for us. That's number one. And that shows what happened. Like in the Muslim majority precincts, Trump won by 10% more, 10 points more in those areas. He got more numbers of voters, 10 points more than when he did in 2016.
Is that in Minnesota or in Michigan?
Yes, that's in Minnesota.
Okay.
And in Michigan as well, where he won. Remember in Michigan in 2016, when he won some areas, he did not win Dearborn,
Yeah.
right? And this time he won majority. I think it was like 89% or something that he won.
So it's fair.
Region.
So it's fair to say that Somalis, quite a good chunk of Somalis voted for Trump in this
absolutely. Now
in this
let me
last year's election.
right there.
Yeah.
Yes, let me hold your thought right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk numbers, Ali.
Yes.
Somalis voted that way in Cedar Riverside area, in certain, pockets where Trump was not supposed to be getting higher numbers. Yes, Kamala won, but Trump gained by 10 points.
Yes.
Let's look at a state like North Carolina, I think, where the Democrats won the governorship, the Democrats won state seats, but Hillary lost overwhelmingly.
Kamala.
And majority of the
Yes.
I mean Kamala, not Hillary. Kamala lost, overwhelmingly on areas where Black majority population live.
Yeah.
So you cannot only hold Somalis accountable for not voting for Kamala when other Black areas have voted against her as well, or not even vote at all.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Right?
And actually, there was a stat that I was reading somewhere that Black men under 45 voted 30% for Trump.
Higher numbers. Let me tell you, this election, the Hispanics, the Asians, the Blacks, everybody voted in a higher percentile than what they did in 2016 when he won.
Okay.
Ali,
all right.
I think I can explain why.
Yeah, and before you explain, Mika,
Mika,
there's some callers we're going to get to you. The number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. It seems Hassanen has attracted a number of callers who want to ask you some questions. So let's go to you, Mika. Mika.
No, as in my point was simple that I would say for the, as Hassanen said, the high percentage of young Black people or young Hispanic people, male voting for Trump was in fact contributed to a lot by those Red Pill podcasts.
Red Pill podcasts. Okay. Yeah. Na kwa wale hawajui Red Pill podcasts ni gani hizo, Mika, utawaambiaje?
In Andrew Tate.
Ni zile za Red.
Andrew Tate,
the comedian.
So this manosphere personalities.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Aya, sawa. Before we go to the caller, Hulda here on Facebook, let me see what Hulda is saying. Hulda says, "Thank you, my brother Hassanen Mohamed, for all you do for our community and our state. Leaders like you help break harmful stereotypes and lift our Somali brothers and sisters. We see you and we've got your back. So proud to have you as a constituent." That's Hulda Mumanyi, state rep, Minnesota. Yeah, and then let me see up. I have a couple of people also on YouTube. Ziki was talking about the MYOB, mind your own business. And then we have Weissman karibu sana. Weissman says Somalis are facing hate and discrimination because they are very smart and active people next to Jewish communities. They help each other and share business ideas. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. We have Hassanen Mohamed in studio talking about issues that the Somali community has been experiencing the past few weeks. Let's go to the first caller.
Thank you for calling the OneMic Show. 2658. Name and where you're calling from.
Caller?
Hello.
Shy.
Caller, are you there?
But you go screen.
Okay, make sure is or maybe is it the audio? Let us.
Shy.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Okay, so just give us a second, caller. Here we check the equipment to
sorry.
see. Okay, caller, name and where you're calling from. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Loud and clear. Name and where you're calling from.
Yes, this is Esther Mulusa, the infamous one, the one who says it like it is. I'm sorry, I have to apologize in advance.
And we love
from
you
North
for that,
Carolina.
Esther. We love you for that, Esther. Talk to us, Esther.
I have so much to say. I don't know whether to make a number of phone calls or just try and mishmash everything in one phone call.
So get your basic point, whatever you can give us, like in 3 minutes, and then kama kuna point ingine, you can always come and call back. How many other callers
Just
do we have?
stop me.
We have 2 other callers.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Esther.
Yes. Just stop me. All right. So I don't know whether to go back to the history. You already mentioned shifter. The shifter was during before independence.
Yes.
The British hived out part of Somalia and put it in the northeastern province of Kenya, and the Somalis were not happy because, like the host says, they are homogenous people. They like being together, but they were forced to be part of Kenya. They did not like that, so they resisted, and the Somali government funded. You helped them to fight and try and get their autonomy back, get their land back. So what Jomo Kenyatta did was to call for British help, and they suppressed the Somalis, and they were forced to be part of Kenya. Something that they never forgave up to today, because they still feel that they need to go back to their country and be with their people. And before,
and before you finish, Esther, there's a little factoid I want to add to what you said, and this is something I found out just a couple of years ago. There was a referendum that was done before Lancaster, asking the people of what was then called the Northern Frontier District, do you guys want to be part of Kenya, or do you guys want to join your brothers in Somalia? And the result was overwhelming, over 90%. They wanted to be part of Somalia, which made 100% sense. So that's just a little factor. Esther, going back to you.
History.
Yes, and that's why Kenyatta had to call for British help, because it was hot. Now, another thing I know is that as a student of political science, I remember we were taught about what is Kenya's foreign policy. One of the Kenyan foreign policy was that Ethiopia and Kenya were friendly allies, and Somalia was not an ally. They had to come together because of the aggression from Somalia. But I don't know what our president is doing right now, because that is something that is supposed to be lifelong, for their own safety, for their own security. Ethiopia and Kenya were supposed to be together so that they, keep the Somali aggression down. But now everything is all mixed up. But I just want to say this, that the reason why these Somalis did not vote, we should just call things as they are. They did not vote for Kamala Harris because she's considered African American. Even when Martin Luther King and Malcolm X tried to go to Ethiopia, they were not received very well, because Ethiopians believe that they are superior even to the African Americans. So that is something you can look up in history and you will find it. These African Americans are very happy. They were very proud of Ethiopia. This is the only country that has never been colonized. So they went there, thinking they'll be received with open arms. That did not happen. So there are many, there's this an assimilation thing. When it comes to marriage, they do not assimilate. Then the problem in South Africa, there was a serious xenophobic attacks against foreigners. But one thing that sparked these xenophobic attacks, now one thing I give the Somali people credit for is they are very business savvy. They put their resources together. Somebody said they're like next to the Hebrews. They went to South Africa, went into the townships, opened up little shops, and they did very well. They really did booming business. And they do that even in Kenya, They did they opened up these little shops in those little townships. But the problem is they did not assimilate. One of the behaviors the South Africans didn't want was that a Somalia cannot greet you in the hand, because they consider you to be inferior. You are Lengumu. You are a slave. Just like Ethiopians, they consider us to be at the top of that totem pole, that imaginary totem pole where the Mzungu is somewhere up there, So that is what made the South Africans really annoyed. How do you come into our country? We are, patronizing your businesses, and you cannot shake us in the hand. You treat us like we are inferior. So the Somali issue brought the xenophobic attacks to, and also, of course, they didn't like the Nigerians also flooding the country and all that good stuff. So another reason, you have already talked about how another resentment by the West is because of that Black Hawk Down during Clinton's time. The West was very humiliated. In fact, after Black Hawk Down, Western countries don't want to deal with African wars directly. They look for proxies. They look for somebody else to fight them. They don't send their Marines. They sent the best Marines to Somalia, the best of the best, and they were humiliated. I think one of them was even tied to horses and, split and all that, the way the Europeans used to do a long time ago. So they don't refer to us as slaves. They even say we look like, chura. They have all kind of, names. And then Trump, of course, has a problem because of this congresswoman, Omar, who really is very extremely vocal, and to him that is, a bit much to take. So he has decided to attack the community. So people should not say that they voted for or against Kamala because of the question in Gaza. I don't believe that. I just believe that they saw this is a woman, she's African American, therefore we'd rather go with a white man because they consider themselves to be up there in the totem pole. So there is also this an assimilation. Can I stop? Of
Yeah.
The way when
yes.
they talk.
So you've given us
the politicians.
Yeah,
Yes.
Esther, you've given us
finished
so much.
yet.
I know you've not finished, but you've given us so much so far. Let's first let
Yes.
Hassanen react to some of what you said, especially that part where you said you think that Somalis did not vote for Kamala because she's black and she's a woman, and it was not because of Gaza. So let's let Hassanen react to that, and then we're going to give an opportunity to the next caller.
But just hold on.
But just hold on. We will get back to you.
Yeah.
So
All right.
So Hassanen.
I want to jump in real quick. I want to say this.
Yes.
I have to create ethos, pathos, and locus. So whatever I'm going to say, actually has some value to what I'm going to say. I think my sister Esther is not correct in thinking that the Somali community did not vote for Kamala because of the color of her skin or because she's woman. Totally wrong. And I'm speaking from somebody who led multiple campaigns and it was in charge of campaign offices and people who are out there door knocking and talking to individuals in my community to turn them out. I previously have run many campaigns, personally as a campaign manager and also as a community activist. Nothing of that sort. By the way, that idea was actually put in by Donald Trump towards the African American community. African American community was the one that came out and was saying, because Trump was saying, who is she today? Is she Indian or is she black? If you remember very well, and he pushed that narratives over and over again. He did that too when he was facing the other Republican lady who was a former governor. She was a Indian who changed her name, Nimbrata to Nikki Haley, and said, who is she?
Nikki Haley. Yes. I remember her very well.
You remember? So
the governor of North Carolina, South Carolina.
He always plays those things. He divides it in the African American community. You can see on the blogs, on my friends, they're saying, okay, what are we dealing with? Which Kamala are we dealing with? Are we dealing with the Kamala who claims to be black? Or are we going to deal with Kamala who went to college and put down that she's Asian and telling people that she's Asian? It was all fake news. It was supposed to create that distraction, and he was successful because black folks meaning that, folks who have ancestry here in the United States were the ones who said, what, she has a dad who's from Jamaica. Her mom was from India. She doesn't represent our interest, so we will be okay with voting for somebody else, and that conversation came out after election where we said, what, black folks, we need to have a conversation, because those are the statistics that came out. But in the Somali community, that never happened. The first and foremost thing that made a decision against voting for her was, number one, the Gaza issue, because a lot of young people were on TikTok. And you remember even Trump said, TikTok helped me win, this election, right? Because he was able to pull in a lot of voters from the young population away from Kamala. He was able to change people's directory. One thing I want to mention is this: not only Somalis were voting for Trump. I manned a polling station in my district where there's a large West African community members. Guess what? Nigerians, Liberians were wearing Trump shirts.
Kenyans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Kenyans were wearing Trump shirts. Trump hats.
Voted.
Yes.
I mean, I
was shamed. I literally felt shamed that we had the craziest time in 2016 with the ban. If you remember, we were at the airport trying to release people from customs, right? Because of the ban that happened overnight, right? And these were people from countries. And then you remember, shithole country being brought out against Nigerians. Why the hell would you go and vote, for this person, right? So I will say that's one of the things that, and then on the South African side, the xenophobic, if you remember, it's not that Muslims don't shake hands. I mean, the xenophobic was Nigerians. Are you going to say Nigerians didn't shake hands? The xenophobic was with Zimbabwe. Are you going to say Zimbabweans didn't shake hands? It was an economical issue. Somalis and other Africans who are savvy in business came into small shanty towns and opened business that created some form of a jealousy. The same thing white folks right now are going through. Whenever they see a successful Somali person that has happened, they ask, is this has to do with fraud? Because now fraud is the in thing, And then when we talk, and I'm going to jump this into something else. When we talk about Eastleigh and businesses in Kenya, Somalis have had businesses in Eastleigh. They build it out before feeding our future. Fraud cases, before any of the fraud cases.
And we're going to come to that. We are going to come to that Eastleigh and feed in the future.
I just wanted to mention,
yes.
it's an economical thing that happened, and people tend to attach something to it to create a narrative that is completely wrong.
Okay, thank you so much, Hassanen. Now, let me read some few comments here real quick before we go to the next caller. Thank you, caller, for being so patient with us.
And that is caller 5667.
Yeah.
You're next.
So caller 5667, you're next. Now, there was here, Ziki saying there was an Arusha declaration where Somali Prime Minister accepted NFD to be part of Kenya. That is true. But then there was also a referendum that Somalis said that we do not want to be part of that. And this was, I think, pre-Lancaster, because the British were also trying to engineer a result that they wanted. And the Kenyan coast was also affected. There's so many different parts that were affected, but I think we need a whole other episode about Lancaster, which we'll work on getting one next year. Then we have
Ali. Just to mention, not only Lancaster, the previous referendum. You need to look at also the referendum for Ogadenia region that never happened. You need to look at the referendum of the Djibouti that happened, but it was completely. They got cheated by the French until they got their independence in 1977. You can look at that referendum that they did, that put Djibouti under the French colony, denying them to be reunited to Somali. So all of those are all entwined. I think you should have an episode just dealing with those referendum needs that has not occurred.
We'll have another date with you, Hassanen, next year, and we're going to do an episode on that. You just gave yourself an episode next year.
Several episodes, by the way.
There's a guy here called Kauzi. Yeah, okay. On YouTube. Anasema, Kauzi is asking, is there a good book you recommend about the Somali history, pre-colonial up to today? So maybe when you might want to think about that, Hassanen, and you can give it to us later. Very
good question.
Ziki is saying, let's quit this nonsense. You just cannot force any community in Kenya to assimilate to another community. And then Ted says, our Somali origin brothers have really suffered. It's time to stop this vice. And Ziki says, Kwanza, after COVID, I don't want to shake anyone's hands. Kwanza nikiona wenye wanacheza na mapia. Where?
It means mapua.
Mapua. I got to be careful catching some virus. And then Atero says, stop laying blame. You full-throated backed Trump. I think he's referring to Somalis. And then Ziki saying, I love this guy, Hassanen. He is well-informed. I also like the professionalism of the folks in the studio. Thank you so much, Ziki.
They didn't differentiate.
Thank you so much, Ziki. And then Atero says, Trump stated exactly who he was, and you said, I am good with that. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. The show is on fire today.
I think
yes.
Let's take a kidogo.
Yes. Let's go to the caller. Mika, let's give the caller. Yeah. Mika 1 minute, caller mekwa kigojea sana. Mika 1 minute, and then we're going to go to the caller.
Okay, So I was saying, let's take a wusa before we go to the caller. Let's take a wusa on one thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Number one, I think when people are talking about assimilation, they're not telling Somalians to behave like Kenyans or anything. they're just telling they're talking about coexistence. So tusipigane juu ya assimilation.
Or
Like we are
the
fighting,
wording,
we
yeah.
are fighting
what
over
you're saying.
mundane things.
Yeah, I think
So
it's the
give an
wording.
example, Mika. Give a quick example to understand.
So
Vile watu kwa pamoja.
a quick example to understand is this, right? I will give you an example. When I was born and raised in Donholm, right?
Yeah.
Neighbors wetu ilikuwa Kinabdi, and I don't know if you remember Khalif, the MP who was elected with ODM akakufa, then his son was elected.
Johnny.
No. There was an MP from Northeastern.
Khalif, yeah.
Khalif,
Sasanwake, yes, I remember. That was during
his son was
Kibaki's administration.
Yeah, and then his son was the one who... So his son was my classmate in Primo, in Doni Primo, right? These guys were Somali. They were in business, trucking business, like a very rich... And then at that time, walikuwa naishi Greenfields. And Greenfields ilikuwa imejua Somali. Wengi walikuja wengi wa Somali. Walikuwa na malori. Actually, ndo Omocha akitaja malori nikakumbuka hizo Fiat. Because najazanga hivi. Hapo nikitoka shule zimejaa hivi. So, we lived with them in the community. Kina Zamzam were the first people to actually open like a supermarket kwa estate. Unaona? Kwa store. So, we assimilated with them. Like, tulikuwa najua ni wa Somali, tulikam tukaanza kukula snacks different na vitu different, but walikuwa Somali bado, but we lived with them peacefully. That is what assimilation means, like integrating, mnaishi peacefully. Si ati wanageuka wanataka kuwa Somali, wanakuwa Jaluo ama Kikuyu.
So
anyway, but I think it should say coexisting, not assimilating.
Yeah, it's coexisting.
I think
coexisting.
Yes.
So you're coexisting. I'm still wondering.
Hiyo jina assimilation.
Yeah.
Inafanya watu wanagongana hapa because
sasa wacha nikwambie. Mikasi, you America, watu wanasema assimilate. They don't assimilate. It's a white supremacy term that has been used.
Wow,
Ushona, usitumie hiyo assimilation. Mtu akija, wewe unaambiwa tayari, kama mtu mweusi unajua, mwacha mila ni mtumwa.
The mtumwa,
America unaambiwa it's a salad. Everybody anakuja na flavor yake. Unaelewa? Utakikani kuwa na flavor ati nyote moja. You know? So if you look at historic context ya America, hakuna specific culture. Ni kila mtu anakuja na culture.
Aya, so let's give a chance to the caller. Caller has been waiting for a while. What's the last one?
Okay, 5667. 5667. Thank you for calling the OneMic Show. Name and where you're calling from.
Hello, my name is Daniel from Boston. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Talk to
Daniel,
us.
welcome.
Talk to us.
Yeah, very good. So on the boundary and the change, the referendum, I would really like to participate in that discussion. That is a topic I have researched and published on. It's a very big topic that's usually oversimplified. Now, I have to take task your guest today on a few things he said. By the way, I really feel sorry about what's happening about Somalia. It's very unfair. Somali is being scapegoated by Trump. Now, having said that, I would like to maybe push back on two areas, one or two things that came up earlier. For example, about how homogeneous Somalia is. Okay, true. But Somalia has other fractures that are serious, so they may not be tribal, but they are serious fractures. That's one reason why Somalia has had the issues politically it has had so far. So that's one. Second, the other example was Liberia. Liberia is not homogeneous. If you remember, when Samuel Doe took over from Tolbert, if you remember those days, if you read back about it, the reason Samuel Doe did, the main reason he did, is because he argued that those people who came from the U.S., those people who were formerly freed slaves, they held on to power from the time Liberia was started up until that time. So even though they were a smaller percentage of the population, but they held on to power for too long, at the expense of the other people who were indigenous Africans, those who have always been there forever. So there were serious fractures in Liberia, and there has been even today. So it's not, Liberia has not been homogeneous, and I would argue Somalia is not homogeneous. It has fractures in other ways, the clan system and all that. So that's one. But the last thing, and this is actually the most important one, your guest has made the argument, and I can understand that there was an increase and there is a high, a sizable percentage of minorities who voted for Trump. But here's the problem, or here's the problem with that viewpoint, which is partially true. Those other minorities who voted for Trump, they have a lot less to lose than Somalis. So, for example, when someone is a Black American, when they are born here and they vote for Trump, they have way less to lose than someone who is an immigrant. An immigrant from Africa who votes for Trump has, I would argue, a little less to lose than a Somali. Somali always comes up for mention by people who hate immigration, people who hate Africans. They are one of the first 2 or 3 countries they'll bring up is Somalia. So for a Somali to go and vote for Trump, it makes no sense to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel.
Daniel, before you go,
yes, go ahead. Yes.
No, I just decided to chat GPT AI this thing.
Yeah.
What I posed was which are the only 2 homogeneous countries in Africa?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was Africa is one of the most ethnically diverse continents, so finding truly homogeneous countries is rare. However, based on studies of ethnic composition, the 2 countries most often cited as being largely homogeneous are Somalia and not Liberia, but Lesotho.
Okay.
I just wanted to share that.
So
Yes.
wale madema
But then,
Lesotho
yes.
Very relaxed.
I want
So
on our guest's defense,
Mm.
he actually, when he was explaining the homogeneity of Somalia, he did not just explain based on politics. He actually explained it based on DNA.
DNA,
and
yes.
intermarriage.
Yes.
Ethnicity.
that is fine. So I think even with Hassanen, the Liberia part, I think the only correction there is Lesotho. However, Mr. Daniel, we would like, you've said you've researched on more. Can we get information of where you have?
You know, I've had conversations with Daniel.
Okay.
And I blame myself because Daniel is someone we need to have on the show.
Sasa,
How
are we supposed to learn this about borders?
Tulizeni mbele.
Daniel, huyu mtu bwana.
Relax.
Okay,
We'll
sawa.
get Daniel in studio.
Professional here in the studio.
Jumeattend. Okay, sawa. Okay, Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but let's allow Hassanen to react to Daniel.
Okay, sawa.
Yeah, Hassanen.
First, I want to say thank you, Daniel, for coming on board. Yani, I don't have any much different to tell you, but I agree with you that the most highest thing that people will lose than the African American community when they make such decisions as Trump is the immigrant community, especially Somalis, since we are the red meat. There's no other country that has been mentioned negatively in circles of politics than the Somali community, So that's true. But you have to know this. The individuals that showed up in that press conference that say they were voting for Trump, is not individuals that just didn't come out of nowhere. We had conversation. Ali is my witness. I showed him the text and stuff that I had conversation with them. I literally have, and I'm saying, listen, you're putting your identity. Remember, when a white person stands, here's one thing that our community needs to understand. When a white person comes in and stands somewhere and says something, we look at that white person in the perspective that they're either Democrat or Republican. We never looked at them as they are German, Scandinavian, Irish, Italian, or anything. We look at them that. But once you're an African and you put your thumb on something, believe me, your identity to your nationality or even tribe comes to play. And that's where a lot of these individuals thought that, supporting Trump was a good thing. When he won, they were, shamefully celebrating it, right? But now when the community is being targeted and we have ICE driving in our Somali malls and it's empty, they're nowhere to be seen. You know, they have written articles, they have taken interviews saying they are abandoning the Republican Party. But what does that have to do with lifting up our community? Our businesses are going down. People are scared. Kids are not going to school because their fathers cannot drive them to school. You know,
those the businesses are not opening. They're actually, we've seen, reports that are like, because of the targeting of ICE, businesses are actually not opening, and not only within the Somali community, the Latino community, and other immigrant communities,
Haitian community.
Once they have been told we are coming after you, the guys are like, okay, we're going to shut down, and for the safety of our workers, we don't want to be targeted. We don't want these guys to come in here and kick our doors in, so we're not going to open.
And look at this. Look at this. If you look, there was some Haitian who are on social media even after Donald Trump said, like, they eat cats and dogs. So people make personal decisions, but on the community perspective, majority of us have pushed back that narrative. But remember, this is a country where you can make your individual decision, and that's where we cannot interfere with that decision. We can hold them accountable, but we can't stop them from doing it. But on the majority side of the community, we're totally against Trump. We stood up on 10 toes on that.
Okay. The number to call, 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. We're going to pick up the next caller. Those who want to support the OneMic Show, on the YouTube channel, on the bottom right hand of the screen, there's a $ or whichever currency you're using, whether it's a shilling, whether it's French franc, or whether it's a euro, whether it's a sterling pound. Yeah, so those who are asking, like, how do you want to support the show? There's a $ that you'll see right there. When you click on it, it will tell you what you need to do. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. We are with Hassanen Mohamed in studio today, and let's go to the next caller.
And if Daniel is still listening, let me tell you, Omosh, we want that paper that he has written. It has not been shared by this guy. Yes, but you may attend.
No, Daniel, you may attend. It doesn't have a color. Unajua, I still have vitu za nini, zile paper 1, paper 2 zilikuwa na different colors. Ukiona paper 2 unajua umefail. So sorry.
Yeah, Daniel text me and we'll plan for next year. Let's go to the caller.
Okay, let me make sure I have this correct. 2026.
Hello.
Thank you for calling the OneMic Show. Hello. Name and where you're calling from?
Hello. How you doing? Hello. I'm calling from New York City. How you doing?
Good. And what's your name?
Yeah, my name is Mohamed. Diallo.
Mohamed from New York City. You said Mohamed. Mohamed Diallo.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm from West Africa. How you doing?
All right. Great. Is it Senegal or Gambia?
Guinea.
Oh, Guinea. Oh, my goodness. I thought I was that good. But thank you so much. I think you're the first caller from Guinea ever to call the OneMic Show.
Bienvenue.
So bienvenue. Oh, there we go. He knows some French. Okay. All right, good.
Yeah, Guinea Conakry.
Okay.
How you doing?
We're doing great. So talk to us, Mohammed.
I got quick thing that I want to add. What the other brothers were saying about it.
Yes.
Sometimes when, we're all from Africa, our family tell us sometimes when you're trying to cross a river and the river is full, you know how to swim, but the rest of your family don't know how to swim. There's a crocodile inside that river, and the crocodile keep eating people, eating goats and cows. You have to be careful. It's not because you know how to swim. Mm-hmm. The reason why I'm saying this, since I know a lot of people are not going to understand that example, I watch a lot of videos on YouTube. It's a lot of brothers from Somalia. Mm-hmm. The young kids, they sing a lot of stuff on YouTube. If I can sit down with those brothers, I can advise them, don't say this type of stuff. Because remember, today, anything you say, in 1 minute or 5 minutes, the whole world will know what you're saying.
What kind of things are they saying, Brother Mohammed?
Like, example, I'm going to give you 3 examples, right? Mm-hmm. Number 1, you come in on the YouTube and make a video. I'm not black. This word gonna touch a lot of people. I'm the one I really love. people from Somali so much. Even my wife keep telling me, "Oh, why can't you go and marry the one over there?" I feel that would hurt me a lot. To say, "Wow, I cannot believe they say this type of stuff." You understand? So, plus, we all immigrate in this country.
Right.
Sometimes you need to understand when you come to this country, you have to think about your other family. It's not because even though they give you everything in this country, but you have to think about other people. It's not because you got a United States passport, then sometimes you can say everything on the TV or on the phone or on YouTube. You have to be careful what you say. Since I came in this country, I always hang out with the black brothers here. I know how they feel about us. I talk to them. I ask them why your brothers don't like us. They say type of stuff because I play with them, I talk to them. I understand how they feel. I understand what they go through. I understand it. So to me, when I see that type of word, I wish I can put all the Somali community to talk to them face to face. Say, brother, that is something. Don't allow your kid to go on live YouTube and say it. It's not good because it's going to haunt your family.
Wow.
It's not good at all.
Wow, that
it's
is
supposed to be. That's something. Yeah, that's something that wallahi, brother, I love Somali so much in Ethiopia, bro. I saw those words these days. Sometimes it's hard for me to go to sleep because I see some kids saying, "Oh, look me, I'm not black." Some even go far. I'm Arab. Now I'm thinking about one thing, brother. We all Muslims. Travel to the Arab brothers to the Muslim country. You're black. And see how they're going to treat you as a Muslim. So sometimes it's hard. When you say, black, you're hurting the whole people from West Africa.
Wow.
This is hard. Wallah, if I can get the phone number, those kids who saying this on YouTube, I can advise them, brother, please, never say that word. Because this word going to make you always, the enemy going to make fun on you. They think you're gonna think, oh, you know what happened is those people they're my friends. No, it's not that. The way you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. I have a lot of Black Americans here, friends. When I talk to them, they always say sometimes, yo, Mohamed, why your people don't like us? I said, listen, have you ever traveled to Africa? In Africa, I told them, I said, listen, when we want to watch a movie, when we see a black guy on the program, we always say, oh, this movie is so good. This movie is nice because there's a Black American inside the movie. The movie is dope. It's nice.
Yes.
But sometimes they're not going to understand now, like Ghana, now they started traveling in Ghana. I know a lot of superstars out here. Now they started going to Ghana. They started going to Nigeria. Now they see when they go to Africa, they got much love. So what you need to understand, if I go to your house right now, you told me, okay, you know what, Mohamed, take a seat. If I went inside the house, you give me food, I'm supposed to think about, listen, I'm inside your house, this is your family. Even though you told me, yo, Mohamed, you can do whatever you want in my house, I'm supposed to think deep. You know what? This brother told me I can do whatever I want, bro. I have to think what I'm going to say. I have to think where I'm going to eat. I have to think deep because of my other family. It's not about me. It's about the other people who come in. I've always seen we always pray to may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring peace in Somali in a lot of places. But if those brothers are here, because some of them have papers now, they say they're coming out on the TV talking a lot of stuff. They're hurting their families.
Wow.
All right, I wanna
do you know what's going on? I'm not really wallahi, but I'm not happy in my heart. I wish I can sit down with those people and talk to them, brother. Please never say this type of word. Never say it, because this is very, very dangerous word.
Yes.
Now look how many Africans. Now look how many Africans making videos about this. Oh, no, what happened? They said they know that. They said they know. It's not good. You're supposed to love each other.
Yes, Brother Mohamed, like this is, like golden advice, and coming from the first person from Guinea Conakry to call us, this is a historical moment for the show. So real quick, we're going to go to Hassanen to react to what you just said, Mohamed. But real quick before Hassanen, one of the things that people need to realize, especially about those videos that we are not black, we are not this. What is happening is also that for those of us who are on YouTube and in these social media spaces, they understand that there's certain content that social media likes promoting, meaning that the content owner is gonna make money out of it. A lot of these kids have discovered that because this content is triggering, many people are gonna view it and we're gonna make money out of it. So a lot of those kids, even who are saying that stuff, I can guarantee you, they do not, like they know what they're saying is false. They do not believe in it. But because of the way the social media algorithm is, there's certain content that social media likes. It triggers people. It's shared a lot, and they make a lot of money out of it. Hassanen.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, Mohammed, salam alaikum, brother. Comment I just want to say this, in part of my circle sitting with African leadership, one of my very closest ally that passed away is Al-Hajj Mohamed Ba, who is from Guinea. He was the president of the Guinean Association, very close friend of mine. We built masjid together. We were together in the board. He even gave me an honorary citizenship for Guinea. So I'm, if you look at me, I look close like a Fulani guy, so I'm part of Guinea as well, but I want to say this, what these young people are talking about, just like Ali is saying, is they're looking for clicks and views
and likes,
when we have, when we have these discussions with the youth, believe me, they are very pan-African. This is the funniest phenomenon that I've seen. If you guys look at any kind of protest that happens in the Twin Cities, in the front line about Black Lives Matter or so on and so forth, you'll see Somali youth. They organize. They are together. One of the very famous video of during George Floyd was a smoke canister being thrown in and a girl on a hijabi picking it up and throwing it back at the cops, So this conversation we have had internally in it, and I can tell you that when we have these conversations, when we face this conversation, let me finish. When we face this conversation, we are really hard on these kids, and we tell them like, this is not right. We are Africans. Don't speak like that. It's not allowable. Now, on the other part, some of my nieces in my generation. Some of my nieces and my nephews in my generation, like my kids, my siblings' kids, I have a daughter, that I raised, my sister's daughter that I raised. She's married to a Korean. I have my eldest brother's 2 daughters. One is married to a white person. One is married to a Senegalese. My 2 nephews, one of them is married to a Cameroonian wife. The other one is married to another white, lady. So it's, that notion of you are not, African doesn't exist in my family when we have these conversations, and I don't see any of my closest family members coming on social media and talking like that. But I've seen it that other kids do that. I think it's wrong. We have those discussions. We have had multiple discussions on social media about, is Somalis considered Black or not? And it's just stupid when people just take that into context. And you have to know, social media is not for everybody. There are some people, to get clicks, they will do random crazy things. They do rude stuff. They do everything. Even remember, there's a recent incident in Kenya where there's a Somali kid that throws a flag and steps on it and all that stuff. I mean, it's unnecessary. You're just doing too much. So that's the only thing I wanted to say, Mohamed Diallo.
Okay.
I'll let you speak more.
Okay, Brother Mohamed, we'll give you one more minute. Brother Mohamed, we're going to give you one more minute, and then we're going to continue. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add a little bit on what the brother just said, right? I understand that. But you remember, brother, this country, all those kids who saying it, we are Muslim, they have family. The family is supposed to advise them. Don't say this type of word because it's going to haunt our family. Don't say it. Don't say it.
Okay.
You understand? This is the reason. To me, I'm always gonna think. I always gonna think about my other family, the other people who come in. If they're gonna ask me right now, all the African people can come over here enjoy American dream. Because you know why? Everybody can have their dream. But the point is sometimes there's some word you're going to advise your family, your kid. Don't say these things because when you say it, it's not good. The word going to go far.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Brother Mohamed. Before we let you go, Mohamed, how did you find out about the OneMic Show? We are a bit curious here.
Oh, what happened is because these days, like 3 to 4 days, I keep watching the YouTube or watching what the president say about Somalia. I keep watching it. Now, I was in the bed. I was looking at my phone. Then I see the things. I said, let me click it. Then I click. I started hearing your guys talking. Then I said, oh, let me see if I can call the number.
Okay. All right. Thank
Online.
you. Make sure you share it with your other Guinean brothers and all your West African brothers so we can get more West Africans here on the OneMic Show. We broadcast live every Friday from 8 to 11 p.m. We speak about Pan-African issues, American issues affecting immigrants. You have enough content. After this episode, you have enough content that you can go watch, that we have on there. But thank you so much.
But we are taking
thank you so much. Okay?
We are taking a break in December for Dirty December. So
Yes, we are taking a break in December and we will be back again in late January. Yes, but we are here every Friday 8 to 11 p.m.
Thank you.
No problem.
Subscribe and like.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a turning point in OneMic history.
Wow.
We have someone from Guinea Conakry. Of all the parts of Africa, we've had callers from Tanzania, from Burundi,
Australia,
from East African countries, from Australia.
Yes.
But I think this is the first West African. Not even just Guinea Conakry, the first West African, and he randomly found us on YouTube.
And you know what's
which means that people are concerned about this topic, and they were able to find us.
Like he was saying, he was just, he's been on YouTube, he's just been listening to what's going on with Somalia, whatever, and then boom,
and then this pops up. You don't know who's listening to you. He said he loves Somalia so much that even the wife was saying to him,
"Go and marry someone else."
You need to go get a wife.
So I don't know, Hassanen.
I think Hassanen might be the connect.
You never know. Do you have any singles?
Yes, I can make it happen for him, man. Guinea is my family, man.
There we go.
We already got the guy a wife. You know what's interesting that just came out of this call to me was that other Africans are actually concerned about the Africanness or lack of the Africanness in all of this.
Yes, they're very concerned
because it's not a Somali issue. It's an African issue, aka an immigrant issue, aka we are all affected.
AKA we are all black.
It has to be because the thing is, you remember that Swahili saying, ukiona mwenzako ananyolewa, chako tia maji.
Yes.
Yeah, because you know that the moment they succeed in oppressing this brother next to me, I'm going to be the next one. At the end of the day, today I actually saw something. An African American said something. Oh, so the Africans have realized that they're not different in their eyes.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Because we a lot of Africans have actually had that belief that they're better than African Americans.
Or sat back and said it's not our issue, it's their issue.
It's not our issue, it's their issue, right?
Now it's here in our doorstep. Our doorstep has been kicked in.
It's becoming more apparent that they're targeting us as immigrants. And it's easier when you pick a certain kind. When you label somebody. When you say Somalians are dirty, right? Kenyans are thieves, Nigerians are this, these ones are this. It's easier for people to hate that way than to say Africans. If you say Africans, people are like, nah, I know these ones who are good. I know these ones are good. And the way they said, even in Latinos, they stopped calling them Latinos. They call them by country.
Wow. Now, let's read a few comments here. Today's show has been fire. We've gone a bit off script, but it's a lot of valuable stuff.
Hatujakanyangiwa waya
leo kama last week tulikanyagiwa waya na
there's no commission that has called in.
Yes. So hapa some comments were coming in.
Suluhisho.
Tech says, say hi to Mohamed from Guinea Conakry. Diallo Kam we'll call you, we have lunch. Okay, so it seems there's some connections being made here. I don't know. So Mohamed is from New York City. So Tech Heads, I don't know that you're from New York. If you are, you guys can share your numbers here and connect. OneMic Show connection. And then here we have Ziki saying, I can relate with the frustration of Brother Diallo. We are mostly careless in the way we dispense information, which is very, very true.
Especially, what's that network called, Ali? The one that people normally use?
WhatsApp News Network. That's a
WNN.
worst place. That's a worst place. Yeah, that's a worst place. Yeah, and then
we have been severally whipped by Ali. Because he asks, where do you get this information?
Exactly.
Is it verified?
Show me the way and the path.
Yes, because there's a problem where people like saying, even when we're sharing this flyer, a lot of people were saying information, and then when you ask them, okay, corroborate what you're saying, then they're saying, oh, I believe, I feel, I think. I'm like, no, like we live in an age where it's so easy to verify information. So it's very sad that people still want to go by these vibes that they're going by, what they've read from influencers and all that. Now, Ziki also says, Hassanen, please continue to be part of the expert panels. I love people who speak substance. They enrich your purview of issues on a wider scope, which is very great.
Ziki.
Yes, that's Ziki.
That's not like Ziki Munyao, but
yes,
I don't know.
Yes, so Ziki, tell us more. Tell us more also, Pia.
This Ziki sounds very familiar.
Ziki is suspect. I think it could be Mika who's changed their name.
But I think,
Maybe I will sit in my chest.
Yes, but I think with Ziki saying this is part of what our goals are, to expose people to other. We're not here to change opinions. Widen the nexus of information you have, so that you can come out and say, okay, I did not see it that way, or I did not know it that way.
Yes. But for me, like I said earlier, it's more to unlearn so that I can learn.
Yes.
Because, and I remember there's one time I was asking even Ali, like, it would be interesting for me if there was, and I'm saying this because I don't know if there's like a Somali community like in the DMV Baltimore area.
Oh yes,
Baltimore.
of course.
If there is,
mi
nitakuwa huko ndani, because it is good to immerse yourself, to know, to interact with people. When they say vitu kwa ground is different. Hang out with people.
So the Silver Spring Mosque on New Hampshire Avenue. If anyone has ever seen it, the imam there is a Somali. Yes, the imam there is a Somali on New Hampshire Avenue.
There is a good community.
Yes,
there is a good Somali community in Boston that has been there. Even I have relatives, that live in Boston that have been there. But
in Baltimore, if you have a hookup in Baltimore,
I know there's a big one in Virginia.
Yeah. So let me tell you, how in usually when community comes together is through crisis or every celebration. You know what I mean? So
that's true, yeah.
they're not like that big of a population where they have like an institution like we do in the Twin Cities that deals with many things. But on them is reactively, something that has to do with some crisis. They will show up. Something to do with celebration, they'll be around,
Okay.
But if you know Somalis in the Baltimore area,
okay.
Because if I can't travel to Silver Spring, but like Apo Bolti, Apo Essex, Apo Murima,
sawa. We'll find out. Now there's
kuna jamaa litangalia Msomali.
Yes, kuna mtu aliniuliza kama hiyo question because aliniuliza. No, it was it was a couple of weeks ago hapa kwa comment akaniambia wewe aliona kaoria. Nikamwambia maybe you might be right.
Umeitwa oria mara mingi sana.
And then hapa
alia kuna jina mob.
Yeah, hapa a quick question, something that Sally Jones brought up on Facebook. She said, I'm sorry, but most of my Somali friends voted MAGA, saying Trump put money in their pockets, forgetting he was riding on Obama's economic policies, which he messed up with not listening to the warnings about COVID. I think we've beat down that topic. Let's move forward a bit.
I don't think it's not a monolith. But
yes. But so just to move on a bit so that we can cover a few other issues. There was a lot of narratives that were going on online since the time, even before Trump said that and when he made his comments. So one of the biggest narratives that has been circulating right now is the claim that Somali parents in Minnesota are faking autism diagnosis to receive $1,500 per child from the government. Now, we've seen this repeated on Facebook, TikTok, and even by some African commentators. We have influencers here in the diaspora and back home, and they're reporting it like it's fact. Now, from your perspective, Hassanen, is this true? Yes. Is it partly true? Is it false or wildly exaggerated? And before you answer, Hassanen, as we dig into this, I want to encourage our audience in our fact checking mode. I want you to take a moment, do your own quick fact check as well, and let us know in the comments what you're finding. So Hassanen, again, from your perspective, is this allegation that Somali parents were faking autism diagnosis to receive $1,500 per child? Is this allegation true, partly true, false, or wildly exaggerated? Hassanen.
Okay, so it's false, and I'm going to explain so I can give you guys context.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so check this out. Autism has been a very big deal in my community. Saying that parents have been faking autism, it's a lie, a big lie. And I'll tell you why. Because research has shown that in the American population, 1 in 32 or 33 kids who are born get diagnosed with autism. And in the Somali communities, it's 1 out of 14.
Wow. Okay. So the number is much higher. The number of kids with autism is much higher. Okay.
Very high. And when people say, like, how does it become high? And I'll tell you this, Somalis come in a very extended family connections. When I was growing up, I didn't see a prevalence of autism as I see it now. Okay. I have sisters-in-laws, I have cousins, I have relatives that have kids with autism, and I'm in like on a really high-end spectrum, right? Like kids who, if you leave your door open, they will run out, not recognizing where it is. Some of them are even reaching 18 years. Some of them are becoming violent, and et cetera, et cetera. And some of them are, they get triggered because of lights, sounds, et cetera, et cetera. So that notion that Somali parents are faking autism for their kids is wrong. It's not true.
Where did it come from? And how did it come to a point where it became because it's being shared a lot, especially when you look at some of these Kenyan influencers. We don't want to mention their names, but it's circulating a lot. Okay,
so I'm not going to mention this organization, but it's in the media. You can look it up. It's one of the first organizations that got charged by the feds here in Minnesota. Mainly the center of that charge, the charge was that they were giving kickbacks to the parents. Okay. And I'm going to say this, my representative Hulda sits on the Health and Human Services Committee in Minnesota. Minnesota has been very generous in terms of how they spend dollars to take care of the population. I'm just going to give you a brief understanding of how this works. The feds usually pay $51 for every the feds pay $51 for every $49 that we pay in healthcare and all that other issues. Autism did not have a program whatsoever. Minnesota created it. I think the initial budget was less than 10 million when they're creating it. Within 2 years, it ballooned to $300 million. That means 49 for every $100, $49 is paid by the state, 51 by the feds, right? And it ballooned so big. Majority of the programs were opened by Somalis because they didn't have no licensing. There was no barrier for entry. Okay? Can you imagine right now if you wanted to open a store in, let's say in your neighborhood, you have to go to the city council, get a license. You have to have inspection. You have to have all of this. What if there's nothing, none of those? You just register your business and you can run and you can fill out a paper to bill the government. And that's what happened with the autism program. It created a lot of folks who came in. There wasn't any barrier to entry. It was just a It was just
it's like the wild west.
It became a wild west, you know. So now Holder and the legislation, they already put in some guardrails. Some guardrails starting January 1st. The Autism Center will have a licensing, you know, where they will have to have professionals who are licensed, that are approved, that are hired under the, you know, W-4 rather than 1099s, you know, all those things that make sure that this is intact. But that program, that lady who got charged, what they did was this. There's a competition, and this has happened over the years, you know, in getting clients. So clients have become so savvy, and now, you know, my opinion is this, is that I think the legislators should look at penalizing clients now rather than providers. Because on the provider side, they're looking to make a business, right? But on the client side, they do that research. They come out, let's say, you know, all three of you have autism centers. The client will come and say, hey, listen, I have a child. You'll be able to bill X amount of dollars a month, or a month. What I need from you is X amount of dollars back as a kickback, you know, because I'm going to give you that child to bill, you know. And that's what has happened with the Autism Center that was charged, was because our parents, you know, participants were given kickbacks. They were given that money for the services being provided by their kids, you know, for their kids. And that's where the notion comes about that says, oh, they are faking diagnosis for getting $1,500, you know, because that doesn't happen. You don't fake diagnosis. These are independent professionals that do the assessment to make sure that your child has autism.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
but the kickbacks thing has happened in mostly all programs that have participants. Can you imagine, Ali, if you have a chronic disease, let's say diabetes, high blood pressure, you know, and instead of going to the doctor that gives you the best service, you look for a doctor that says, hey, listen, I have diabetes, high blood pressure. I'm going to come to you every month. You're going to bill X amount of thousands of dollars to the healthcare business. Why don't you give me a kickback? You know?
Okay.
And that's what has happened with that program.
Okay, good. So in conclusion, you know, it's not like all Somali parents are out there trying to get $1,500 per child.
No, I'll tell you this. We have autism is something that is very, very personal to the Somali community because we have been affected. We are looking for funds to find research that can pinpoint. You saw, you know, our president crazy notion that Tylenol causes autism, and came and did a press conference saying, hey, I found you know, the reason why we got autism is because of Tylenol, you know, which is just crazy. But there was no research that backed him. So what we're saying to researchers is, can you find, you know, research? Why is it very prevalent in not only in Somali community, by the way, I'm saying in African communities. The Somali community seems to be high over here, but in African communities, West African, Liberians, Nigerians, they have kids in a high amount of percentages in autism spectrum than white kids.
Okay.
You know? And that's a concern.
All right, good. That's a very good response. The number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Hassanen Mohamed in the studio. We have another caller.
No, we have another caller. No, but I'm saying, no, we don't. But if you call, please press *5 to speak.
Yes. When you press *5 is when your hand is raised and we know you want to speak to us. So we have a caller.
Imagine.
Okay. All right. So caller, you can call back again. The number is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. So I think we're gonna, you know, like we're gonna move to the next question here because we had so much to cover. I don't even know whether we are going to be able to cover all this. Hassanen, there was another claim doing heavy rounds online in that it was saying that Somalis in Minnesota, supposedly, this is not fact. These are now those claims that were going around online and people saying that this is what Somalis have been doing in Minnesota. So the claim that was doing heavy rounds says that Somalis supposedly sent $1.7 billion of fraud money to Al-Shabaab. This number is being shared as if it's been verified, and many people are repeating it without information on where it came from. Now, from what you know, Hassanen, is there any truth to this claim, or is it a distortion or something entirely false? And again, before you answer, I want our audience to once again take a moment, do your own fact check on this figure, and tell us in the comments what you're finding out as we unpack this. So Hassanen, from what you know, is there any truth to this claim that Somalis in Minnesota supposedly sent $1.7 billion of fraud money to Al-Shabaab? Is it true? Is it a distortion? Or is it something that's just entirely false? Hassanen.
Totally, entirely false.
Okay.
There's no way Al-Shabaab will get $1.7 billion from anybody, number one.
Okay.
You know? And number two, that's not Minnesota. I think that's a remittance for the whole country. Let me give you a good example. Kenyans remittance to Kenyans here in diaspora, remittance to Kenya is how much?
It came to about, I think it's closing in on 5 billion the entire year.
Can you imagine if we say 5 billion is the money being sent to a terrorist organization in Kenya? Would that make sense?
The numbers don't make sense.
Okay, so that's the same thing I'm trying to say here. The remittance that Somalis in America sent to Somalia does not go to Al-Shabaab. They go to families, they go to relatives, they go to things that they want to do over there. It doesn't go to Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab does not get funding from individuals in the United States. And we went through and we talked about how Al-Shabaab at the beginning was something that everybody supported until it was designated a terrorist organization, and everybody fizzled away from it as that. And now we have a government in Somalia that people support. Either they support or against, or they're in the opposition, but they believe in the democratic process of those government in Somalia. And everybody unanimously sees Al-Shabaab in Somalia as a terrorist organization, period. There's nobody who can come out and say Al-Shabaab is doing, God's work or is doing people's work. Absolutely nobody.
And the other interesting thing I found out when I was doing this research is that number 1.7 billion is the entire amount that the Somali diaspora sent to Somalia in remittances. It's the entire amount.
Yes, and it's the entire amount. That's what I'm saying. Listen, what it is we don't have a financial institution in Somalia. We don't have a place where right now you can do money. They're building it now. We have PayC, it works like SendWave, and before even people were sending money with M-Pesa, when you're taking a tuk-tuk, in Mombasa, and you want to pay a tuk-tuk, there's a M-Pesa number on top, you do the till and you send them that. Somalia has the same thing in dollars on their phone before even Kenya had it.
Oh, that is interesting, because I know Somalis had the Hawala system before, back when a lot of people were using Western Union. Most of us were familiar with the Hawala system, where you would go somewhere physically, send the money, and then someone would go collect it in Eastleigh. And then they opened up other locations to pick up the money. That was back in the day. That's how money used to be sent.
So check this out. Right now, if I'm going to send to some really remote areas in Somalia, I will use the Hawala.
Okay.
Right? That's because that's the only place that they have somebody who's an agent that can give them the money. But if I look at the easy way for a Somali person in Somalia in getting the money in their phone immediately, and you get a text message and stuff. There's so many apps right now in Somalia that they can do that. Just like the way we use like SendWave, we use what's the other one?
Those other ones, they haven't paid for advertising.
They haven't paid
yet.
But by the way, I'm just gonna say, I met an agent in Minnesota for SendWave, and he did give me $50. So thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, they didn't give us anything.
They didn't give us
that's
anything.
That's a discussion for another day.
SendWave, there's a program called OneMic Show. A lot of diasporas watch. They send money through your agency. Please make sure you connect with them for sponsorship. Okay?
By the way, we were the first people in the diaspora
was actually
to,
launched on the
to
OneMic
advertise Sendwave in 2014 when people were still using Blackberries. The number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. We have a caller. Quick,
6499.
real quick
You're
before
next.
real quick before we pick up the caller,
Yes.
you know, like e-comment ya Chris Kibet na kuja kuisoma baadaye. Friends Geek is asking for the number. It's 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Yeah, so I think these comments, I'm gonna read them because it's questions. I'm gonna read them after the caller. So I think we can go to the caller and then we're gonna come back to the comments.
Thank you for calling the OneMic Show. 6499. 6499. Name and where you're calling from.
Mzuri, karibu, hatukusikii
Mbona
vizuri.
sauti umenyonga hivyo?
Sauti, paza sauti kidogo tafadhali. Is it our... Oh, okay, just talk again.
Thumbs up on mic.
My name's Nancy. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Loud
we
and
can
clear.
hear you loud and clear. Nancy, talk to us.
Where are you calling from?
Ulikuwa shy.
I'm calling from Iowa.
Okay.
Hey.
Nancy from Iowa, talk to us.
Now, ignore my message.
Allah?
Anyways,
Umepoteza.
here's the thing. We share a lot of mutual friends.
Yes.
You guys, I share a lot of mutual friends with Mr. Mohamed because Iowa and Des Moines is just, Minnesota and Des Moines is not far. So we share a lot of community members, right?
Okay.
And so I was going to speak much more, but I'm getting tired. So I can only just speak on one thing.
Yes.
I have a friend. His name is Abshir Omar. I think Mohammed, you know him. Hassanen, you might know him. When he
I
was
know
here,
him. When are you guys gonna
basically
take
I
him back?
introduced him to politics. Let me scare.
Yes,
Let's
we
not
can hear
scare.
you.
Unaulizwa when are you gonna take him back, but I don't know what that is for.
Which one are we taking back?
Huyo umetaja.
Abshir.
Huyo Abshir. When are you taking him back?
Abshir. What niambie what happened? So Abshir, I think he's younger than me, so I introduced him to politics. Once and then he joined the Bernie. He was Bernie Sanders people.
Yeah.
And then last year he was doing a whole press conference supporting Trump. Like what happened?
Wow. That
And
was
he's now moved to Minnesota. So,
okay.
but I also live in a state whereby I know a lot of Africans voted for Trump, and
Yes.
it wasn't because of even Joe Biden. It was also because she was a woman, and they said it.
Okay.
But anyway, I was just curious how somebody like Abshir will switch from Bernie to Trump.
I can explain.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
All right. So Abshir was an upcoming individual, young Somali guy who was part of Bernie Sanders. He did a big speech when Bernie Sanders was being introduced. It catched a lot of, folks got interested in Bernie Sanders's campaign, Then he moved to Minnesota and he joined a campaign of an individual that divided the Somali community in his votes. That individual, who was a Somali, he was the main campaign manager. And then when they went for a convention, they started a fight at the convention and they got banned for life from being to run as a candidate, as a Democratic candidate in Minnesota. So that hate culminated to something else. Abshir was in a group of individuals that was part of Feeding Our Future, right?
Oh.
So to make sure that he does not get, and this is my take now, to make sure that he does not get targeted by the Republicans, he showed up in conferences talking Republican points, and then on that press conference that Ali and I talked about, where we had some community members that showed up, he picked up the mic and he said that the Democratic Party has abandoned him. But it's because, his candidate was banned for life. He was banned. He lost, he lost that pull that he had in the Democratic Party. So he wanted to appeal to the other side and it backfired heavily, So right now, it's just people are saying they don't know why he wasn't charged yet, but he's in the middle of feeding our future as well. And that's the fallout with him.
And we're going to be talking about feeding the future shortly, because I know a lot of people are waiting for that. But Nancy, I want you to react to what Hassanen just said. I don't know whether this is new information to you or whether now it explains to you what you were wondering, why he switched from Bernie all the way to Trump. Nancy.
I think after he did the press conferences, when I was like concerned, I was like, what is going on? And then I was able to see some of those things about feeding America. But I also know when I met him, he barely had a car. And then the next thing, he had a very fancy Mercedes. That's all I'm going to say, okay?
Wow.
Okay. And it's very unfortunate because he's very talented. He's a very young, talented man.
Wow.
This sounds like like Huruma is just an estate.
Where these revelations,
na niko na nyingi lakini tuachie tu hapo. Barikiwe.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nancy. Okay. Again, the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. This topic has attracted.
Yani, this is what Hassanen does. Ameleta tu nini.
Unaona, Hassanen has information on his fingertips.
Machawa zinatoka, Stima Mendes iko sijui.
Now, real quick, before we go to the next, question that I have for Hassanen. Chris Kibet has some very interesting questions here, and I like it because this is the Kamkunji.
Chris Kibet is my hero.
It's a Kamkunji, and it's okay. It's okay to ask these questions because these are questions that are on people's minds.
They sure
so
are.
Chris Kibet is asking, let's take it back home now. So why is it there's no peace in Somalia? Are Christians safe in Somalia? Hassanen. Loaded question.
So, wacha nikwambie, there's this notion that, why there's no peace in Somalia. There's this notion that nyi mkiwa kabila moja, ama mkiwa one religion, or you believe in one political system, that it's going to be safety. That's a fallacy. Humans are known to have disputes. And when you don't take care of disputes, it becomes wars. So in Somalia, like I said before, we are homogenous. If you look at any Somali, they all look alike, unless you ask them, like, what tribe are you? They will tell you, like, I'm this tribe, I'm this tribe. That's what I mean, like, genetically homogenous. And then we believe in one religion too, like we're all Muslims, But we have disputes that goes beyond tribal lines and economics and resources. Those are the things that people dispute about in Somalia. Economics and disputes, and resources, they create regions. Regions also fight with, revenue, with resources, Good example is, if you look at the region Somaliland, they have like a port. They want to rent out the port. The federal government says, hey, this is under our purview. We are supposed to be getting the money, not you as a region. Can you imagine if Port of Mombasa, every fees that comes in doesn't come to Kenya, but comes only to Mombasa County, So that's what causes the conflict all around there. Because if you concentrate it on the central government, and it's a country where there's a rampant corruption everywhere, regardless of religion. I'll tell you about one of my trips when I went to Somalia one time, and this happened in a couple of cities that I went in. As soon as they knew I was from America, they asked me, hey, can we have a sit down with you? And they already knew about my involvement in the community, my capacity in politics and all that stuff. And the guy came in and said, hey, I want to ask you this. Why don't you open a program here? I'll get you the elders. They will rubber stamp this for you. You'll be able to get funding from Europe. And when you get funding, you can either buy a house here or Nairobi. You can settle your family really well, and you can give the elders some money and they'll be quiet. And that's it. And that's how it functioned. And while he's telling me this, the call for prayers is heard. Like, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Then he says, oh, by the way, it's prayer times. Can we go and pray? So this is how my community is, in Somalia. They will one time talk to you about corruption. The next minute, they want to ask you to go to pray with them, And that's an unfortunate thing about corruption in Africa. They very normalized it. And I'm sure Somalia is not the only country, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Kenya is the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, Tanzania is the same thing. Uganda is the same thing. Rwanda is the same thing. I don't care which corner of Africa it is. People have normalized corruption so much. Mimi nimeishi hapo Ulaya over 26 years. Every time I go back home and I see the type of corruptions going on, I just, you know, let me tell you this, even when you leave airport in Jomo Kenyatta, there's a roadblock kabla hujaingia. Unampatia askari $50 anakuacha uingie. He doesn't know what you carry inside your car, you know? So corruption is just crazy, you know? It just doesn't make sense in Africa, and it's not moving, you know? And here's the thing, you know, Ulaya, the reason why I think corruption is less is because maybe they have a higher population of matured individuals. In Africa, you know, 75% of the population is young folks, and they see stuff now. There's that peer pressure of making it. They want to be successful. And I think that's where sometimes it causes it. But even in Africa, you know, older folks also like are very corrupted. You know, they're the ones who cash
It's
in
the
on
norm,
everything,
like you say.
you know?
It's the norm.
And by the way, you know,
they have normalized it so much, you know, very much.
like
And it doesn't matter. Hata my pastors pia, hata my imam.
I was gonna
you
say
know,
that.
hata
No, that's
Because the
true.
pastors,
That's true.
Not even
Yeah.
that. Even the Kenya president and his administration, Ruto.
Yeah.
Bible carrying people who are always preaching KKK. Lakini wao ndio number one.
Yeah,
huko.
but then you going
Yes,
back to
yes.
to Kibet's question here, Chris Kibet's question on why there's no peace in Somalia. One thing that I will always tell my fellow Kenyans, any Africans, to pay attention to: any persistent war in Africa or any area where there's been persistent conflict, there is the hand of either the Americans, the Europeans, and now they're using, you know, countries like UAE and Qatar as proxies. Look at
Ali, I
any
think
conflict.
Ali, I'll say this.
Yeah.
You hit it right on the nail. I'll explain a little bit in that context.
Yes.
In Somali politics, remember, I'm going to just say this so you guys can understand. We don't have a one person, one vote in Somalia. We have a system called 4.5. 4.5 means that the four major tribes have the 4 pieces of parliament, and then all minority tribe have the 50% of the smaller of those major tribes. You understand what I mean?
4.5.
Yes.
Okay.
So let me break it down to this. Let's say we have the Nilotes, Bantus, and Kushites in Kenya. Okay? And then we divide the parliament into 300 seats. And we say Nilotes are getting 100 seats. You guys decide. The Luo and the Kalenjin are all Nilotes. You can decide, like, among you, who's going to get how many seats. The Bantus have 100 seats in the parliament. And then the Bantus, you're telling, hey, Kikuyus and Midi-Kenda, you guys decide who do you want to be over there. And then the Kushites, you know, the Somalis and Oromo and everybody, you've been asked, hey, you have another 100 seats. You guys decide who you want, how many seats each tribe gets to be on there. And then all the other smaller tribes, you know, that don't exist. Let's say Wabaniani, let's say Kalasinga, you know, that are there. You're giving them half, let's say 50 seats for them to decide among themselves. Okay. And then the presidency is decided. Whoever who becomes the president from the Nilotes, the prime minister needs to come from either the Bantu or the Kushites, not the minority.
Wow. So and that's how the system is.
That is how the system currently is in Somalia.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So right now, when you're having that discussion about who is going to get the seats, countries like Qatar and Emirates come in with private planes with buckets of cash. Okay, to give, because the elders have to make a decision. Can you imagine wale mababu wa mila wanasema kijana wangu Ali ndio ameregea, wacha nimpatie kiti, kwa sababu wewe umempatia $150,000. You came from America, you had cash, $150,000. You bought a seat. You gave all the elders some money, and they chose you to represent.
Wow.
You know, and that's why you find the parliament seat in Somalia is full of diasporans. They don't have a local person because a local person cannot raise 150,000
to give to the
bribe
elders.
The elders. Yes.
Wow.
You know, so Emiratis do that. Qatar does that. Now, why do they do that? Somalia has a vast oil reserves. They go and buy the rights to those oil. I went to see one in Puntland, right? And you know what they did? They bought the rights to it. It's $1 million a year. And they just capped the well. They put a whole metal thing and welded it. Why do you think they did that? They are lowering the supply so that the demand is high of oil around the world. So can you imagine if Somalia right now, where the places where they have oil, if they opened up an oil rig, guess what happens? A city forms there because people will want to eat, people will want to sleep. And once you have people there, they will want to build schools, they want to build hospitals. So all of that is being denied by countries like United States who have got rights to some of the wells, Emiratis, and the Saudis, because they don't want to increase the oil output from any region. They want to maintain that monopoly of pricing, you know? And I try to explain to like Somali politicians, like, hey, can you put something in your contract? And they're like, these contracts are valid for 30 years, 50 years, 100, you know?
Wow. Okay.
Like they're just crazy. And then another part, I used to live in Houston and I had a Ethiopian friend. When he was younger, he was caught with a gun. So when Trump came in as president the first time, he got deported to Ethiopia, right? So now he tries to sell fish to like Western hotels. So when I was in Somalia, he was like, hey, Ethiopian Airlines comes to that city like 2 times a day. You know, can you find me fish? And this is like where the fish comes from. And I went to that area and I said, hey, I have somebody who wants to buy like consignment of fish being brought there. And they told me, just be quiet. I said, why? Because the Minister of Marines, he gets paid 25 million a year to just look the other side for the Chinese to just grab whatever fish they want.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
So there it is. I mean, there's conflicts. There's people, you know, who want to eat and fatten their pockets. There's geopolitical folks that come in. And finally, look at this. Have you seen videos of Al-Shabaab soldiers? Every day you hear Al-Shabaab is attacking some place, killing soldiers from the national government, killing soldiers from the African Union. Have you seen them? They're carrying brand new AK-47, M16s and everything. Where do you think it's coming from?
Where did they get them from? There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And they have a limitless supply of ammunition.
Listen, let me put it into this perspective. I have nephews and niece. A niece is in the Somali army right now. Their salary, okay? Their salary for Somali soldier is about $250. The $250 a month, sometimes they don't get paid 3 months, 6 months, and then they get a lump sum at one time. Okay? It's not a steady every end of the month. Ni kama vile kufanya kazi munispa. Ukifanya kazi munispa Nairobi na Mombasa, kila siku hawalipi pesa a couple of months.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Even landlords are scared to rent it to you if you say I work for the municipal council because there is no steady payment you receive. So soldiers in Somalia is $250. They're going into, you know, real fights, sometimes without no bulletproofs for $250. Do you know how much Al-Shabaab pays their foot soldiers?
How much?
$600 a month.
And Hassanen, how do you know this?
You go kwa community. You go kwa ground.
I'm in the community.
Okay.
I know this conversation. We have this conversation.
So they are paid.
We troubleshoot.
So those Al-Shabaab fighters are paid.
Are paid on the dot.
Wow.
Every end of the month in pesa mkononi. No question asked.
Wow. Okay.
What?
That right there.
Wanabeba furushi za cash. What are you talking about? Let me put it this way. Umeona the other day, they were bombing this region in Puntland because they said there were ISIS there, right?
Yes.
These guys have a dialysis machine inside a cave.
Oh my goodness.
A dialysis machine is not in the city center. They had it inside a cave, giving it to some soldiers who had kidney failure.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Some terrorists who had kidney failures were getting dialysis inside a cave.
Unlearning and relearning.
Wow. Okay. Now, you know, like
and then
this,
you wonder why guys are leaving coast to go and join them.
Yeah. So Hassanen here, because for the sake of time, there's so much that we are covering. One of the other claims that was also doing heavy rounds, besides Al-Shabaab, is the narrative or the idea that ngoja kidogo, I want to make sure this is the one that I wanted to ask you, because there's so many things here that I want to ask you that I'm not even sure that we're going to have time to go through all of them. Yeah, so there was this narrative that Nairobi's real estate boom, especially in Eastleigh, South Sea, and even parts of Nairobi West, is being funded by fraudulent PPP money coming from Minnesota Somalis. The claim is that these malls and towers are basically built on US fraud. From where you stand, Hassanen, or from where you're sitting, is there any truth to this, or is this another case of misinformation that has been twisted and amplified online? Hassanen.
There is some truth to it, and I'm going to explain a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not PPP. It's Feeding Our Future. So Feeding Our Future, there was one organization that defrauded 250 million. The other one defrauded 189 million. So you're looking at close to $500 million.
Okay.
And majority of the people that took money from there were investing it in East Africa, mainly Kenya.
Okay.
Okay. So if you look from the COVID time up to maybe last year, people were buying apartments in cash, and the U.S. government cannot claim it back. You have seen people who have pleaded guilty, people who are found guilty. They could not take that money back. They don't know, because it was a cash transaction. They cannot pinpoint where it is. There was one individual, Alinunua Resort Diani, and he was given by the judge his passport and was told, go to Kenya and sell that property and bring the money back as part of his plea deal.
Alienda.
Sindio.
Akarudi na hela.
Amerudi na hela.
Ni fala gani?
Okay. Yeah.
So go look, meaning his last name is Shire, Shire.
From those there were about 30 people who are convicted. That's case? Is that the case you're talking about?
Yes. So there's out of 78, I think there's about 60 of them are Somalis. But you have to know the people who are charged were people who have often openly stealing. There are some people who are not charged ambao pia waliiba, ambao wamenunua apartments, in Nairobi. But now you have seen, like in Nairobi, people have buildings that are not half finished. Wanauza their stakes. They're like, listen, you can buy this apartment for 20,000 right now, because there's no booming anymore. There's no 250, $500 million of infused cash flowing into Nairobi anymore. So there is some truth to that. The building construction boom was being brought in by people who took some money from here. It's not PPP. Now, if you go to PPP, you had to prove you have a W-2 staff, because the government was giving you money to pay your staff because there wasn't any kind of business going on, right? Mm-hmm. So what they're saying is, kuna watu walikuwa wanatengeneza W-2 forms za fake. Unasema, hey, I'm hiring ABC, and majority ya hizo PPP, Feeding Our Future ilikuwa Somali in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Lakini PPP ni wazungu na African American. Wamechajiwa wengi sana. Hata kuna gangi in New York, you can look it up. Walienda wakafanya PPP ya over 2 million and something, wakaanza kununua maferrari na nini,
wow.
And do music video. So PPP, there is a website. You can go and look at any organization there. You can put their name and you will see they received 800,000, 900,000, 500,000. Kwa sababu ya nini? Low barrier. And it's forgivable money. So wewe leo hii umetengeneza W2 form, watu ambao hujaandika kazi, you get that money. Tomorrow government akutumia barua inakwambia, tumekuforgive you. There's no case.
Okay. So the money, like so the talk of your real estate boom, that's a fair. It's fair to say that a big part, and this is according to what you're telling us, because now we're also trying to learn,
Telling you,
is that a big part of it was a handful of Somalis who poured the cash into Nairobi.
Yes, those who were charged and those who are not charged.
And how many people are we talking about approximately?
Oh, Ali, wacha nikwambie. Mimi nilipokuja, I was away for 7 months. When I came there and I heard about what was going on, I downloaded a spreadsheet from a government website that showed me who was asking who. I don't know how you guys know this, but did you know there are some people who are saying they're feeding 2,000 kids a day?
Yes.
In a city that had maybe 100 kids.
Wow.
Yes, and they had fake storefronts. It was an address, and they didn't exist.
And they had names.
And they just had a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet every month they were turning it in, and they were just changing names around.
Yeah.
In the same spreadsheet. So you move number 1 to number 5, and
there was
so on
nothing.
and so
There
forth.
non-existent. There's non-existent names, fake names, everything, and they're doing it. Skiza bana, kwenye hiyo listi kuna hata kanisa za Kenya, kuna makanisa za Waafrika, kuna makanisa za kila aina, kuna msikiti ndani, kuna nini. One of the people huyu jamaa ambao, there's this whole family from Mandera that was found guilty. You guys know about it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're from well-off family in Mandera. One of the brothers was being told, return the money. He's 25 years old, amekimbia. He doesn't want to return the money. So now he's been charged while he's away. Amekimbia na pesa nyingi sana. Part of their indictment, wamenunua msikiti mzima in Kentucky.
Wow.
They used the money to buy a mosque. It got taken in by the feds. Look up Masjid al-Bilal in Kentucky. It's in the indictment. I shared it on my Facebook. If you look at it, I said, you're committing fraud. Mpaka unaenda unanunua msikiti na pesa haram.
But you see, I think, like I've noticed there's a lot of these people who, when they get a hold of haram money, they try to sanitize themselves by kufanya vitu kama hizo hapo.
It doesn't work. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. One of the biggest spending spree that they did, if you look at the indictments, is taking their whole family to Hajj. Hajj from America is $12,000 to $13,000.
Yeah, it's very expensive
per person.
Yeah, it's very expensive. Yeah, it's very expensive.
For those who are not Muslim, for you to go for Hajj is one of the pillars of Islam. It says, Hijjul Bayti alil istata'a ilayhi sabila. Go to Hajj if you're able to do it. Able to do it.
At least once in your life.
Of Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. 1, 10 times, but at least you are able to do it, right?
Yeah.
But there's some regulations. The regulations are, it has to be your own money. You don't have to owe anybody money. Si tunaenda, unadaiwa na watu 20, alafu unachukua pesa zako unaenda Hajj. No, pay off your debt.
So basically, unasema Ali, at this point, since he owes me Aizienda, I just want to clarify.
Hiyo mambo tuongee nyuma ya tent.
Kama mnamkizeni, kama mnamdai pesa, Ali hawezi kwenda Hajj.
Bas. So he owes me 5,000.
No, kuna do zangu hapo nazo. Nikisikia
wadau nyuma ya tent.
Sorry.
But you know an interesting thing I found out, Hassanen, because when my mom was going, it wasn't even Hajj. I think it was Umrah. Yeah, it was Umrah. And she was going with a group from here. So we went to a location in Virginia to pay. And then nikaenda kulipa na credit card.
Walikata.
Do you know that's when I found out that they are not accepting credit cards? And like theoretically we know you're not supposed to have like any debt, like you should not finance Hajj with debt or Umrah. It should not, because it's only compulsory upon you if you can afford it and if you're physically able to do that. So like these are things that we know tumefunzwa madrasa that huwezi kwenda na deni, but it never hit my mind
that a credit card was deni.
Yeah, so I had to go to Bank of America. I had to go to Bank of America and actually get a check. You know, like, because they have to verify. There's no way in which they can verify, because there's a kuambia or minta I'll pay off this credit
I'm
card.
gonna pay it,
They have no.
I do my ninis.
They have no way of verifying that, so they just
It's
don't accept credit cards.
It's a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Abu, it has some bearings in your religion. You know, when you go to Hajj or Umrah, you're saying all your sins are forgiven. You are like a newly born person.
Yeah.
You know, so you want to make sure you follow all the rules and stuff before you go there. See,
Yes.
and now Hajj. You
Yeah.
know, that doesn't count.
Nele siku ndenda Hajj, you guys better start calling me Al Hajj.
No. They, you know, Ali, at this point,
you guys better start calling me Al. Ayo ingine tuongee nyuma ya tent.
You're going nowhere. With what and if you're going to go back to Virginia kwa wale watu, sisi ndio wale will be there kuambia huyu haezekani haingii.
All right, again the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Again, it is 202-683-4570. Press star 5 to speak. Now, do we have another caller?
We still have somebody hanging over here.
Okay, Ngoja, we'll come to the caller.
2658.
Yeah, we'll come to we'll come to that caller.
2658.
But real quick before we go to 2658, Hassanen, the other narrative that was spreading is that Somalis are buying Kenyan ID cards en masse, including people who aren't citizens. This is seen as part of a plan to flood the 2027 elections to give President Ruto a second term in office. Now, these claims are, of course, being repeated online, and we don't know if they are confirmed facts. But from your perspective, Hassanen, how much of this is true? How much of it is exaggerated? And how much is simply political fear-mongering as we head towards 2027?
And before you go in there, I just want to add on to that one. As a Somali Kenyan, can you explain to folks what you had to go through to get your Kenyan ID? And then you can add on that. Because I think people need to get context.
People don't have that.
But let's first of all start with this Kenyan ID card buying en masse, because this thing is very popular in WhatsApp groups. In fact, today I had to tackle a few individuals who are making certain allegations. But let me hear it from you. Let me hear it from you on this thing that Somalis are buying Kenyan IDs en masse to get Ruto back to power.
Wacheni mwanzo tuanze. Let's start. I'm going to speak in English so that the audience outside the Swahili speaking spectrum can understand this conversation. All right. I'm going to go back to 2016 when the Republicans were, Trump was saying, hey, there's a lot of people who are given a path to citizenship and green card so they can vote against the Republicans. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Right? When Trump became president, did you guys see what happened to the citizenship and green card processing?
In 2016, no. No. In 2016, it didn't change.
I think it stopped.
All right, so let me tell you.
Because we had
2016,
those countries.
So prior to 2016, there was a dashboard. Unaangalia, if you applied for citizenship or green card, it gets processed within 8 months.
Yeah, it was delayed.
When Trump became president, it was processed within 3 years.
Yes.
It was delayed significantly.
It took a long time.
Yes.
And
it was 36 months wait.
Yeah.
Okay? For you to be adjudicated. And the main reason behind that policy was he was saying there's a lot of people of color. If they become citizen, they don't vote Republican.
So So it was modern day voter suppression.
Yes.
Correct. So they were doing a policy to suppress migrants from, people of color from turning, getting a permanent residency and citizenship so that they do not become a citizen and vote against the Republican agenda. Okay. Now let's go to Kenyan society now. Do you remember the other day, first of all, in Ruto's government, the Somali community have been able to take like really major seats over there. And when the conversation came about and says, why is Ruto giving privileges to Somalis in some of the cabinet position, they talked about, how they didn't support him or what, but at the end of the day, you saw like there were people who were very loyal to him. That's why he was giving them those positions, right? And then I think a few months back, if you remember, there was a policy change that Ruto said in a podium. I think it was one of the Madaraka days or whatever, that says refugees who are in the camps have a right now to apply for Kenyans' ID cards. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. And you know, at that time, it was at the heat of the moment between the Mlima people versus him.
Yes.
So the Mlima people, remember, they had a fallout with the Somali community because they said like, oh, these people are backriding on Ruto, you know, against us. And one day they're going to take everything from us. You remember that conversation, that word being spoken, you know, which touched a lot of nerves in the
iliguza mulima. Ilituguza.
Yes, Sidio. We have to be realistic. So so all of these is just political theatrics where they think that Somalia akipata ID atavote for 2 term. But my question for those who are 1 term is this: what are you providing as an alternative to them? Because their leaders are getting cabinet positions. Their places are being developed now, you know, right? They're getting roads being built. Now there's a road that hasn't been built since Wagala's massacre. If you guys remember, they're building a road that it takes you all the way to the border in Mandera.
Right.
You know? So you have to know there's a lot of pain in this region from it being neglected over the years, right? To now a president who's saying, hey, I'm coming in and I'm bringing you this amount of money, this projects. But Mrima people, if they want to make it a 1 term, they need to bring something rather than just saying, you know, Somalis are going to vote Ruto. They will vote Ruto because he's bringing the bread. Right. He made a handshake. The Luos are talking about 2 terms now. What is stopping Somalis to say 2 terms?
It's not my fault that we finally got a road.
No, so the claim. I want to go back to the claim. And not the political side of it. The claim is
the claim is
Somalis are buying Kenyan IDs en masse.
There's nothing about buying. They're getting it. Why should you buy? IDs, you know, prior, when you're coming to the country, nobody wanted IDs because you're being flown out of the countries. You know that.
Yeah,
now they're buying
Kenya
IDs
was a staging ground. Yes, you're right.
Yes, it was a staging ground to go. People were buying IDs to fly out. Now nobody wants, no country wants any asylees. Asylees have been, there's a negative return than positive going. Zamani watu wananunua ID to make a passport and leave, because going to UK, there was no visa needed. Going to Europe, there was no visa needed. Going to Canada, there was no visa needed. Then they started putting visas. Then they started restricting people. Then they started doing background checks before you even go. Then they started doing interviews at the embassy before you go anywhere.
Correct. Plus,
you know?
Plus DNA. It's very bad now.
Yeah,
I saw it myself, you know? Last December.
Yeah.
With the Somalis, they even have a whole section. It's a whole.
So there's no Somalis who's buying IDs, and Somalis are not buying IDs to vote. You know? If they're getting an ID, it's because they got tired of being asked by police. Maybe they want to go to school. Maybe they want to open a business. You know, that's the only main reason they will need an ID, you know. But the main reason for them is pretty much being scared from the police, you know, because if you're driving anywhere from northeastern region, there's like 20 roadblocks you have to stop. You embark. They have to look at your documents. Who are you? You know? You'll part ways with your money. And is that every roadblocks over there?
I think
those roadblocks happen everywhere. It's just how intense they are. I'm telling you, even us coming from Nyanza coming back in, the roadblocks are there. Now the question as to how intense it is varies by region, in terms of whether unatoka nje na makaratasi and all of that.
Skiza, I'm going to correct you. Ukiangalia Kenya, even if you're driving from Lunga to Mombasa at night, there's roadblocks. But at daytime, there's nothing. In Kenya, if you drive at daytime, there's no roadblocks. Ukitoka tuseme Nairobi mpaka Nyanza. There's no roadblocks.
No, roadblocks during the day, we have them. Me, I can tell you for free because I travel that route day. But it could be that it's a December thing that they do because wanajua watu people traversing back and forth.
But I think the difference that Hassanen might be talking about, which I have seen going like especially if you're headed to places like Lamu.
Yes.
Now when you're past Sabaki River.
Yes.
Now the roadblock is entirely different. You know, like unaweza kuwa searched. It's a military
operation, right?
It's a military operation.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one I get. That one I get.
If you're in a bus, mshuke nyote, they will even search your yes. So it's different.
They can search your bag as well.
So it's different. So the number one reason mimi nakwambia mtu anatafuta kitambulisho, when they tell you like, hey, weza nisaidia unipatie pesa nataka nifukuzie kitambulisho na nini, it's because of security reason. Has nothing to do with the vote. Let me tell you something, man. Our population in Kenya, they have something called political apathy. They're tired. They don't want to vote. They got so much discouraged. Hawataki kuvote. Mimi nakumbuka last election I was there. They had to extend the voting time. It ended. They went to court. They extended it again. It ended because people don't want to register to vote.
Okay, the one other thing that I think we need to make clear here that maybe is not quite clear to some people is that why are Somalis being given IDs? Why was vetting removed? You know, like, because there's a certain segment of Kenya, from what I'm seeing, is that it's like they don't even have an idea that this Kenyan map that we have, there's a portion of it, like 12% of it, between 10 to 12%, lands that historically are Somali. So when you listen to some of these conversations, it's kind of like people are asking, why is it that, like Somalis are now being allowed to get IDs like other Kenyans? That's a question that's coming up, Hassanen.
But using the word Somalis, are they not Kenyans?
No, but now I'm talking about
Somalis or Somali origin.
No, I'm talking
Kenyans
about
or Somali.
No, but I'm talking about just regular other Kenyans who are saying that why was the vetting? Why are they allowed now to get IDs like any other Kenyans? You know, mbona hiyo vetting iliondolewa?
I just wanted clarity on the Kenyan.
Let me say this. You know, Somalis have been in Kenya in refugee camps now for over 30 years, bro. You know?
Correct, yes.
You have kids who are having kids right now.
You have grandkids.
Born.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking about kids having kids being born in Kenya. You know, in other countries, there is a path to citizenship. I think the president recognized that you cannot just leave a whole generation after generation in a camp with no identity. I think that was a good policy. You know?
Yeah.
This is a good policy. I would give them ID, but do you think that giving them ID will ultimately be the one that just makes them vote for Ruto? No. You know, I told you.
But that's the narrative, though.
Yeah.
That's the narrative.
Ruto has brought in goods. You know, he brought handshake over there. He brought goods over here. He brought Mombasa youth. He brought Pale Poanza kupiga kelele nini. When they had the Gen Zs, he brought in money with the blue economy. He told them like, hey, here's, you know, I'm giving you X amount of millions. Alpokuwa Mombasa. You know what I mean?
So clearly Hassanen is revealing ni tutam. But here's one thing. Here's one thing I want to say.
No. But I get his point.
Yeah.
I get his point in that.
Yeah.
And I think also that there has to be a distinction for real in terms of trying to separate, because the political angle that many people are going to say is that and that's the narrative that Ruto, because the mountain has abandoned him and he wasn't sure about Rao.
Yeah,
he needed to secure another solid base, and that other solid base is a base that is fresh, not really, it's virgin. Because and what was supporting, what's supporting this notion of, clearing of getting rid of the vetting and everything was the lady who said, hata kama tutazibeba kwa vikapu ama kutaiba. And you remember that lady?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she
I
came out
remember
and
that
said,
lady. She was a woman rep.
a woman rep.
But
And
here is one thing.
Which now goes to like what to mashinani on the ground elsewhere. They just take that and they're like, these people are wanafanya nini?
But here's one thing I'm gonna say, you know, like, and some of these things that I say,
Right.
Get us in trouble. Or rather, get me in trouble. Let me not say get us. Get me in trouble. Ruto, like everyone who even knows a little piece of Ali, they know how much I dislike Ruto and how much I want him to go because he's not good for Kenya. But
Agreed.
I will say one thing. Ruto is a broken clock. But on this thing, yeah, Somalis, especially lifting the lead on the vetting part, he got it right. Yes, this is me saying Ruto got it right. Ruto got it right because this was something very existential for this region. And I think a lot of other people who casually speak about this have no understanding what it means to be in a region where you're 35 years old and you're still chasing to get an ID. There are people even who up to their 40s they've given up. You know in Kenya without an ID there's
You can't do much.
There's
you can't do anything.
There's not
No,
much.
I'm in agreement and add to it.
Yeah.
And we don't even have to go far. You are an example of how hard it was for you to get an ID.
Yes, because
you
Muslim communities became strays of what Somalis were going through.
But you having had to, you know, you have to go like your grandfather or your father, like Vile Ulienda, and that is just you.
Yes.
For somebody who has never had to go through the process of being converted or confirmed or whatever, they would never understand.
They would never understand.
Yeah. That is one. Two, and that is why I was saying, you know, when you unlearn, you learn.
Yes.
And that is why history is so important.
Yeah.
Because like now, that even Wagala massacre, there are very many Kenyans who have no idea. Chances are right now, there are people who are like, Ati Wagala, what is that? They don't know.
So
and we're talking about our age mates.
Remember, you know, like in the last election cycle here in the US, very early on, when I said Biden is gonna have a hard time getting the Muslim vote. It was very early on when Gaza had just happened.
Of course.
And I could feel it, I could see it.
Yes.
So
we knew that was gonna be a problem.
So now when we come back, you know, like even me at some point, I have to admit,
you are conflicted. Yes,
I became conflicted.
Yes,
I'm glad I ended up voting for Kamala.
Yes,
but now turning this back to Kenya, in as much as I hate Ruto, in as much as I just hope that he would completely disappear from Kenyan politics, I understand the position that the Somalis have taken.
No, I get
for
that.
Me personally,
even me, I will say,
and I can't knock them for that. Because you guys know that I, you know, like also got in a little bit of trouble for bringing up the fact that Unona Gen Z revolt, we were all here with the Gen Z revolt and it was a very difficult time for Kenya. Gen Z revolted because a lot of things were happening and then people started getting abducted, people started getting disappeared. And one thing that I brought up, these abductions and these disappearances were nothing new.
Correct.
Uhuru was doing them.
Yes.
And when Uhuru was doing them, no one came out to protest because it's not like it wasn't known that they were happening, but because these people he was doing them to had been labeled in a certain way, and it became socially acceptable to say, hao ni suspects, ni sawa, wakiwa disappeared. I remember when people being assassinated in the streets and people saying, yo ni sawa. You know, like, I remember these things happening.
I want to say something on that one.
Yes, go ahead,
If you
Hassanen.
remember, we had a big discussion on that one, where the whole Kenyan community in the diaspora was saying, kama mtu ni Al-Shabaab, they don't care about due process. You remember that?
Yes.
And I was saying, I don't care what the person is accused of, mwache afanye due process. Mkitaka mumhang after the due process, but don't shoot him while he's coming out of the courts. And you think that's due process. Don't disappear him and throw him out of the forest and think that is due process. That's not due process. You assassinated suspect. Alafu sasa angalia, when they started finding bodies at Nyala, River Nyala.
Yes.
Yeah. Now they said, oh, pia sisi ndio sasa
Yes.
tutafuzo tunatiwa kwenye magunia tunatupa kwenye.
And
You
also
see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's also not forget that what we came to find out is that, you know, when people were talking about Al-Shabaab, all they were thinking was Ali Mohammed.
Yes.
They were thinking Suleiman and whatever. Only to find out that it was Cecil Otieno
Yes.
from Luo Nyanza,
There were Njoroges, there were
the
all kinds of
Njoroges,
people,
the whatever, who changed their names.
Yes.
Walibadilisha majina.
So now the social media became so toxic
Yes.
to the point that if you have a name, Kama Ali, and you dare say something, then everybody
When
lands
Iwale.
on you
When Iwale.
and says you're a sympathizer.
When
Yeah.
Iwale.
Yeah.
Actually,
I think you guys remember that.
Oh,
period.
no, we remember.
Well,
It
yeah.
was even harsh.
wewe si
Yes.
uliitwa gaidi.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was so
Yeah.
harsh.
That was the way, yeah.
And this is
No,
why I
I
tell
need
people, be very careful. Whenever you see, you know, like extrajudicial killings, whenever you see, you know, like this enforced disappearances, because it's people, you know, like you don't like, or you feel like
It's
they
not
don't
affecting
deserve,
my
they
community
don't deserve due process.
as
Guess
well.
what? Your turn is coming.
Yeah.
And that's what Ruto essentially did, is that he devolved the process.
And by the way, no,
he devolved the process to other communities.
when it came out that the people who were being arrested, or people who were being tracked, or people who were being malizwad,
yes,
when it came out that it's people who were not born in the faith, but converted.
People, they converted at some point.
They converted.
Yeah.
Watu wakaanza kutuliza.
Yeah.
If you, watu walianza kutuliza.
But let me tell you.
Yes.
Let me
Hassanen.
tell you. Let me say this. It wasn't even Muslims at the end.
No, it wasn't. No, that's
There
what you're
wasn't
saying.
even
It wasn't. It was a Kikuyu Njoroge amebadilisha akakuwa Ali Badawi.
No. Usizungumzi hata converts ama reverts. Nope. I'm talking about normal Kenyans.
They just
who are
changed
being
their names so they
disappeared.
can. Yeah.
No. Wachana mwanzo, put aside ile identity ya mtu anafukuzana na Al-Shabaab. That one was done. They started targeting people who had political differences.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. After the sheikhs.
Yes.
Yeah, after the sheikhs. Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. Political
That one.
differences. Watu wakaanza kupotea when they had political differences. Mtu anapiga kelele online, boop, unapata maiti yake kwenye River Yala. Mtu anafanya sijui nini.
No, but it was important to identify.
You know?
It was
anapotea.
No, Hassanen, I was saying it was important to identify that how some people whose names, or let's say for example somebody has been found, or somebody has been arrested, and now he has a certain type of name. Mekama will probably say, just say, don't whatever. If a guy is called Ali Mohammed bin Sultan, whatever it is, then when you do some digging, you find out that this guy was Njoroge Muigai from Central.
But then,
but there's also it is also to say that it's not because what that would have done would the picture that would have been painted was that Waislamu kazi yao tu ni kufanya nini, ni kuterrorize and whatever. Lakini it is not, because it's somebody who went and convert. Well, you can say they changed their name, which was wrong.
Some are going for money.
No, of course, $650 to $250.
$600 a month. Some people are doing it.
But I'm also in agreement with that, Hassanen. I'm also in agreement with that. Where
I am saying,
yes.
Listen, I am saying this. There was a time where this were Sheikh Makaburi.
Yep.
Yes.
Sheikh Rogo.
Yes. Budrogo. Yes.
Who were imams in the mosque. Sheikh Samir, imams on the mosque.
Yes.
They were being killed.
Yes.
And then it became the followers. Mtu ambaye anashikwa na polisi katikati anavuliwa shati.
Yes.
And then they found him in Savo, anashikwa na polisi kutoka nyumbani, they find him somewhere. It was like that. And then it became the Njoroge who changed their names to Ali and Musa, that came back from Somalia. They live in Likoni.
And that
they live in Ukunda.
Yes.
Okay. They got pulled, they got taken at night. Oh, we umeregea, si umeregea sasa. They disappear, wanatupwa, wanapatikana Savo, wanapatikana kwenye mine somewhere, wanapatikana karibu na bahari.
Kama utapatikana.
And then it shifted from being an anti-terrorist like activity to just normal dissenting individuals.
Yes, political difference.
And somewhere in there, Somalis were rounded up and put in a stadium. Yeah. Remember when that happened?
Oh, I remember that.
Nyayo Stadium.
Now, remember, recently, people like Boniface Mwangi were charged with terrorism. And there was an uproar. Yeah, and fair enough, but now, back when, people from certain communities were those charges were being fabricated against them.
Rounded up.
There was no, there was kind of like, there's a likelihood that maybe he's one of them. And this is why I tell people to be careful. These tools now, what Ruto did is that when he got into trouble, he devolved these tools and said, I am going to use them against anyone who looks like they'll be threatening my position as the president of Kenya or as a person who wants to get re-elected. And that's what's happened. So I think it's important to go back in history to understand where this thing started and how now it has reached the normal person. Hassanen, tukimalizia.
Ali, check this out. You remember when if you look at Nichopevu, Nichopevu had an episode where they used to he was showcasing the people killed in like Kibarani and Kisauni, all that area. And every time when somebody gets killed, what do? They showcase a bullet, a grenade. They're like, we found this with them. And Unona, the same thing. They said, hey, here is a bullet we found. Literally, the neighbor was there. This person is told, lay down on your back, and they shoot him in the head on the bed.
I remember that. I remember that video.
YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah.
Remember that.
So extrajudicial killings, it's crazy in Kenya. It used to be tolerated when it was Muslims. And then suddenly people are shocked now when it became Mwangi and Stephen.
When it started hitting close to home, we're like, wait, hold up, wait a minute.
And I said, wait, nini tena natokezea?
Okay. Let's pick up the last caller we have for 1 minute, and we're gonna call it a night. Hassanen, sasa time ya subhi inakaribia.
2658. Thank you for calling the OneMic Show. Tafadhali.
Esther Mulusa again.
Yes.
Close it for us, Esther.
Close it for us, Esther Mulusa.
Nilikuwa nafikiria mmenisahau. No, you have addressed a lot of my questions. The guest is very knowledgeable. He has intel.
Yes.
So he has addressed most of what I want.
I think I'm a Peter.
But I'm just curious.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I'm very curious about Somalis. And I know they are very enterprising, they know how to pool their resources, but I don't understand because when I was, this summer I was in Nairobi and I drove around Nairobi. Nairobi is changing rapidly. When you go to Nairobi West, they are there in droves. They have taken over Nairobi West, they've taken over South B, they've taken over even Hurlingham, those high-rise that are built by Chinese. A friend of mine lives in one of those fancy apartments that most Kenyans can't afford. And she told me, believe me or not, I used to live in this apartment and I was the only Kenyan, indigenous Kenyan, let's put it that way. Everybody else was a Somali. And these are high-rise buildings. You go to, strategic places and you're told this belongs to a Somali. So how do you explain that wealth? It's not just Eastleigh. It's Nairobi also. How do you explain that wealth? Some of it started during Siad Barre, when Siad Barre was overtaken and he fled. There was a lot of money that the Somalis came with. And then the civil war happened, and then they started bringing these small arms. There was a very big problem of Somalis bringing small arms into Kenya from across the border during this civil war that has been continuing forever. But I'm just wondering, what is this source of wealth? You are good businessmen, yes, but I'm just curious, what is the source of this wealth that people can own ultra modern buildings all around Nairobi,
Okay, so
and live in places that Kenyans cannot afford. So I will leave. I will not bring up the other stuff because I can hear you sanitize the whole situation. So I'm not going to bring any of my questions that might not be very nice. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But
That's
thank
all
you.
for today.
Esther,
Thank you, Esther.
Esther.
Thank you.
Okay.
Esther,
Hassanen,
that's
over to you.
Esther, that's a legitimate question, and I'm going to answer it in a legitimate way. So let me tell you this. You know, we as Africans, when we come to United States, what's the first most important thing we say to ourselves? We say, you know what? I'm working 3 jobs. If I do this 5 years or 3 years, naenda zangu nyumbani. I'm just going to go back. I'm done. I'm going to accumulate enough wealth. I'll buy my property. I'll buy a farm. I'll buy something and go back. Then 5 years become, 10. 10 becomes 15, and suddenly we're part of the fabric of this country. The other thing is there's this notion, especially from African diaspora, that bringing the kids back with the wife to Africa gives them better future for their kids, because they don't want those kind of vices that they see in America happening. I have a couple of family members that tried to come back in Kenya and then went back after 5-6 years, due to multiple reasons. One of the major push is this. I'll tell you, I've been married over 22, going 23 years this April, right? If my wife has her way, she would be in Nairobi right now, living in an apartment, and she would have forced me to rent out my house and live in a 1-bedroom place, because that's what she said. Because she thinks that raising the kids in an atmosphere like Nairobi would give them a better upbringing than staying with me in Minnesota, and that has been a mentality for every migrant, especially of Somali community. They tend to do that. People used to come to Nairobi like droves. Now they're going to Cairo, Cairo now is the in thing for the Somali community in the U.S.
Cairo, Egypt?
But,
really?
Cairo, Egypt, yes. There's a whole neighborhood like Eastleigh in Cairo, Egypt right now. They're going in that other immigrants who usually live in Cairo, like the Syrians and they're like, please tell the Somalis not to come, because now the apartments rents are expensive. When somebody says this apartment is $500 a month, they don't negotiate. They're like, we're taking it, So same thing that happens in Nairobi. Somali families are coming in, they're raising their kids, they're putting them in private schools. Their fathers are truck drivers in America. They make good money. They have like halal stores. They make good money. They own businesses. They make, good money. They make more money than what an average Kenyan does. So they're able to afford that, Average Kenyan, ukimwambia rent ni about 65,000. They will be like, no, this is not within my budget. I want something that's like 35,000 or less. A Somali person comes in, they quantify that to US dollars, and they're like, man, $500? Shit, I used to live in a house maybe 2,500 over there. I'm not going to do that. Let me stay here. The housing is cheap. To them, it's cheap, but to the local person, it's expensive. So that's how you see there's this notion in the Somali community that raising your kids in Nairobi is better than raising them in America. That's why you have a lot of families coming in, and then the parents, if a father works, I know that with one income, I can give my wife a good living in Nairobi, better than if I was one income in America,
Interesting. And actually, to hop on to what he's saying is, when I was at the American Embassy, I did mention it here about the Somalis and all of that. I saw. I was waiting on. You remember my incident? So I was waiting on my emergency passport. So you go in the morning, then now they tell you so it depends, So I went in now. Sasa nilikuwa nangojea actually interview. Forget that I even to get it. So I was waiting on an interview. They interview you. That's a whole other story. One day maybe I'll go into deeper into that story. But anyway, so as I wait, I saw the demographics change in the waiting area. We changed from people who are waiting to get visas to go to study, and families who have come, like let's say I have come with my child and stuff like that, to just Somalis. But what was very interesting about the Somalis, it was only women and children. and they had an interpreter, and they even had somebody who was processing them from the American embassy, who was also a Somali working there.
Wow.
So it's like these people look like they were being processed for immigrant ninis to go join like their husbands or things like that. And I'm like, this is very strange. I don't see any men. I only see women and children. And they are speaking to them, interviewing them in Somali. They have paperwork. They have things over there. They are being taken into another room, which is the same room I ended up being interviewed in, and I didn't know. And that's the actual, I guess I'd say, consular officer, who is American, by the way. The rest happen to be basically locals, who they call local staff. So to hop on to what he's actually saying, they're having the family separation where the male is out here working and the women and the kids are in Kenya is very true, because maybe hapo walikuwa naenda process hata paperwork ya kupata ma passports and such that in case they need to travel to come and visit, they can come visit, then they come back. And that was December. Yeah. So I mean, I found it very. I was like, this is something very. It was actually January. January. And that was very
so check this out.
Yeah.
I want to add something to that so you can understand. If your child is younger than 16, their passport is valid for 5 years. You know?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So that's why you see them there renewing it. You know? They don't need to come to America to renew it. They can renew it at the embassy, you know, if it's 5 years.
Okay.
And you know, when you have a person over 16, their passport is valid for 10 years. You know?
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Na wahenga walinena kilicho na mwanzo hakina budi kuwa na mwisho. Meli imetia nanga. We are about to wrap this puppy up. Mika Och! If he's still awake. Mika.
Is he still awake?
Mika Och ametembea.
He's on Kenya.
Ametembea?
Yeah, ametembea.
Yeah.
Yeah, ameenda masjid.
Labda ameenda masjid.
Fire that is Omosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now to the give please.
Okay, asanteni, and I am going to wrap it up the way I was told Madhagodanios. So you look like that. Asante Hassanen, I thank you for making time and giving us, breaking this down to us in what is it called? Things that we can consume and understand, and it's not complicated, because I think that's the best way of putting it.
Yes.
And it's interesting the way we ended up having a relationship with him way back.
Yes, back.
And we've come so far ahead. And when I look back at you when you were coming in then and you now, I'm like, wow, what a difference in the way you're presenting, the way you're giving it to us, and we can come out of this and understand. And to me, were my goals met, I'd say yes. I would actually say yes.
Oh, yeah.
And with that, I don't have much to say. Do we have a show next week?
Yes.
He's gonna touch on that.
No, yes, I'm gonna touch on that. Yes, I'm gonna touch on that.
Because I was getting ready to say, okay, goodbye, because kuna wale wanaenda Kenya. Kuna sijui.
Yeah.
He's gonna touch on that.
We'll touch on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
See you guys next week.
Okay. Hassanen, give us your parting shot.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for honoring my presence.
No, thank
you. You know me, I feel like I'm among my brothers here having a conversation. And the audience also, just taking it in, it's a good thing. And I try as much as possible to make it digestible bites. You can talk facts and talk too much, but if it's not digestible, then it goes shikio moja linatoka shikio la pili, So we want to make sure like our information goes to somewhere where it's supposed to go and people to absorb it in. So I want to thank everybody, and I want to say this, when issues are happening in the diaspora, we deal with it as a community, not as one community. I sit in a panel, in my phone, we have a group of African leaders that we talk about anything, when it affects Kenya, we are out there protesting, standing up and everything. When it affects South Africa, we are there. When it affects Nigeria, we're there. We don't discriminate. We feel like, if it affects one African country, it affects all of us. And this is just a hiccup that we're going through, but best believe 2026 will be voting, and we'll be voting our values, and we will not be used as a scapegoat or red meat for the other side. And I want to thank you all for just participating in this conversation. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Hassanen. Shukrani sana, for spending this. This show has gone overtime. The OneMic Show is very interesting. Like I can tell you, like half of this show was determined by the callers and by the people who are commenting. We sometimes plan, but because we have this Kamkunji format, sometimes it takes a different direction. And there was very high value. What I like most about you, Hassanen, is that you approach this topic very objectively. Because I think people's expectations in their minds, they were like, huyu atakuja tu kudefend watu wake. But you approach it very objectively. Where there was a problem, you openly acknowledge that, like there's a slight problem here. And where, of course, it was just false informations and exaggerations, you also pointed that out with facts to establish your position. So I think you're able to give a lot of people who are tuned in, like Ziki here was mentioning, that extra nexus of information, not necessarily to change their minds, but to just make them see things on a different perspective. So we thank you very much for that. We need to have another episode next year because clearly there's a lot of interest in like topics to do with the history part of it, Lancaster,
and
what happened?
That Daniel guy,
book. Yes, Daniel Karanja. Yeah, Daniel Karanja has a lot of interesting, like books that he's and articles that he's published, and we're gonna be talking to them next year. The other thing that I wanted to say is that so today was supposed to be our last episode, doing a recap of the year, but because of this big issue that came up and that we're able to get a hold of Hassanen from his busy schedule, we're like, this is a very important topic. Last year we had another very fire topics. Ukipata chance, Hassanen, go listen to last week's conversation with Tanzanians. It was so much fire. Ukienda comment saizi
tukanyongewa waya.
Yes, tulinyongewa. For the first time in our 15 years, our live stream was cut off because of the Tanzanian issues we were talking about.
Yes.
Some people were telling us it could have been it could have been the regulation, the Communication Regulation Authority that instructed that our live stream is cut off because of the things that were being said on the show that were the truth.
It was cut off for real.
Yeah, and for those in the DMV, kuna vigil kesho that Tanzanians have. Google the Tanzanian embassy. It's gonna be in the afternoon, I think after 2. Just Google it and you're gonna find the details. So for those who can show up to show them support, that will be a good thing. So again, as an end, we're gonna have a discussion on next year, and I want to thank all the listeners who are tuning in. For the first time, we got a caller from Guinea Conakry. Yeah, and this is someone who randomly found us on YouTube.
CEO.
Yes, randomly. There's certain things that we've been doing, and we are glad that now people who don't know about the OneMic Show can randomly find us. So we appreciate you, Mohamed Diallo, for giving us a call.
Yes.
This is another historical moment on the OneMic Show that we're going to be talking about in the recap next week. Na kwa hayo machache, yote ambaye anataka kunipigia simu, nambari yangu bado ni ile 1-800 mteule. Operator akishika simu, mwambie unataka kusema na mjukuu, na akikuuliza ni mjukuu yupi, mkumbushe ni mjukuu yule wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Kwaherini.
Aiden, daddy loves you. Njari, daddy loves you. Nemo, daddy loves you. Until next week, be blessed. Hassanen, baraka tele, na tele. How do you say baraka tele in
Sasa baraka tele.
Or be blessed. Or be good.
Barakallahu fikum.
Whatever Ali said, barakallahu fikum.
Ama Hassanen tutaisemaje hiyo?
Hiyo tosha, mimi nashafahamu. Yani as long as ni good intent.
Oh, absolutely. Wallahi billahi. Baraka tele.
That's it.
Na familia. And have a good night.
Okay. Shukran Hassanen.
Shukran.
Okay, good night.
Mama, now what did I